perks have been in the game for 3 months now, and we've had not only a lot of time to experiment with different perks and finding out which ones work in different situations, but also a lot of the perks have actually just straight up changed. And so knowing which perk to pick for which situation is really dependent on a lot of new things and a lot of new factors. Today we're going to be giving you the updated Season 17 guide to perks for both tank, DPS, and support. Let's get into it. So for each character that we go into here, I'll generally demonstrate the perk that I think is worth demonstrating, if any of them, because I'd have to go back and spawn and swap again. I'm not going to be demonstrating every perk, but we'll start off with D.Va here. So D.Va has a couple of options here. Bunny Power allows you basically more baby D.Va health, which is the most important reason. Obviously, having more radius slam is nice, but generally, I prefer Bunny Power most of the time, and let me explain why. The extended boosters, which you get more boosters the more that you hit people, is nice. It's a little quality of life change, but Bunny Power not only allows you to remac more often, but more importantly, especially in mid to higher ranks, it allows you to use your ultimate in locations where you actually can play a little bit more aggressively. So it used to be that you'd have to launch your bomb from a little bit further back, but because you have 100 extra overhealth, it allows you to use your bomb in a lot of different locations you otherwise wouldn't be able to. So generally, I would say Bunny Power is going to be the go-to pick for D.Va, although extended boosters can occasionally be useful. From there, I'm going to continue and say shield system is pretty much always guaranteed. Not only does health to shields allow you to regenerate your HP just a little bit faster, as the blue part of your HP is the shields, that regenerates a lot faster than the heal passive, but also being able to restore more of that shield based off of how much you matrix. Again, it's just more regeneration, more self-sufficiency, more sustain. With D.Va, that is really useful. The one niche situation where heavy rockets can be useful is that it's really good versus armored targets. So if you're facing off of a tank that's being a butt, you have DPS characters like Bastion that also have armor, even Brigitte. The bigger bursts of damage does more damage to armor. So in those niche situations, it's pretty good too. Okay, so like we're gonna start off the Doomfist perk one with just saying that they kind of suck, but there are one that is really, really useful. We'll get to that one in just a moment. For the minor perks, hitting an enemy with rocket punch reloads hand cannon ammo, and the best defense, which is his passive when he hits abilities, just basically allows you to get more overhealth. Generally, I find 1-2 to be the more consistent one. It's not all that useful, but being able to basically dump all of your shots out and then be able to use your punch to get them back again is fairly useful for DPS uptime. It's not really earth-shattering, but it's just consistent value. Honestly, both are fairly consistent value, but you'll probably find more mileage out of 1-2. The major is really not even close. Hitting 3 enemies with Seismic Slam is really freaking hard in 5v5. It's a little bit easier in 6v6, but it's just incredibly bad when you compare it to Power Matrix, which not only empowers your punch faster because you're absorbing projectiles instead of reducing the damage of those projectiles, but for crying out loud, you're absorbing projectiles, guys. You're not even taking the damage. You're eating sleep darts, you're eating anti-nades, you're eating cast hinders, and sometimes even when you press block, you still take a lot of damage even with the damage reduction, so you're just eating all of that damage for the first second of its duration. Basically 100% of the time, this is the better perk in all situations, 5v5 or 6v6. Okay, Hazard. So Hazard, I think some people are kind of getting this one wrong. I think both of the minor perks are pretty decent. So the off the top one, you do more damage with your slash on targets above 250. So that's gonna be your Cassidys, your Reapers, your Mays, your rallying Brigittas, and so on. 50% more damage sounds like a lot, but it takes your damage from 80 to 120 on the slash, which is nice if it's like a Reaper May, but it's not so nice if it's a tank. 40 more damage on a slash on a tank is just not all that useful when you compare it with what Reconstruction gives you, which is your jagged wall hits gain extra charge off of your block. So if you look here, if you look in the middle of my screen, there's a resource meter, and that lasts only so long. But if I get even one hit with my jagged wall, look at the extra resource meter that I get. So I actually got full there because I got 2 hits. But watch this. Now, that never expires, first off, never. And second off, you only use that resource when you've depleted your normal block. So see, didn't use any of it. But if I keep going, it's an extra half a second that's consistently available and never expires. Now, I generally recommend going for off the top if you're playing versus a DPS like Reaper, like May, like Cassidy, that you'll consistently be able to land off of. So you have both the tank and the DPS. This also goes for 66 as well. So you just have at least 2 targets that you can proc this extra damage off of. It's pretty useful. But if you're not in those situations, I think Reconstitution, is just consistently free value. I highly recommend this one. Now for the major, the life steal off of the Spike Guard and Arctic Zeal is okay, but I find Deep Leap to just be infinitely better. You get more distance, more range, more offensive output, and also more defensive output because it's not just further jump, it's also faster jump as well. So you're gonna be able to traverse longer distances and be able to do so consistent. More mobility is basically always useful, no matter whether you're playing 5v5 or 6v6, wide maps, compressed maps. This perk is just basically 100% pick rate. Okay, so let's talk about Junkerqueen. So Junkerqueen's minors honestly kind of suck, but I think it's worth talking about just a little bit. So pending recall, basically recalling Jagged Blade from a stuck target refreshes its wound. Now the crucial thing to point out here is you cannot wait for it to expire, so you can hear the tick, 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 tick. Maybe you can't. But then if I pull it there and I wait when the wound expires, it doesn't extend the duration of the wound. You have to wait. You have to pull it before it expires. then it keeps going and it reapplies it. That's kind of useful. It's like an extra 25, 30 damage. But the problem with that is one of the nice utilities about Junkerqueen is that often leaving your knife in a target is really useful because you force them to play out of line of sight for a long period of time. In other words, if I stick this Roadhog here and I don't want to pull him right away, I can just leave it in there and he has to be very careful because I'm going to yoink him in. But if the knife expires, then I don't get the wound refresh. So it's kind of like anti-synergistic. So it's an okay one, but you're probably going to have more utility from the battle shout, which means you fully reload your gun and increase the reload speed of all your allies around you. That's probably going to be more useful, especially with the recent buff to Junkerqueen shout, which means that she has it on a 1 second lower cooldown. So you're going to have this perk happening more frequently. But honestly, both are fairly useful, just not very powerful. So the major is where things get a little bit interesting. So the deep wounds one is if you're applying pressure and applying wounds, shooting just extends those wounds. Like it just keeps going by an extra half second. So if you're consistently applying damage to a target, you can infinitely wound them. You can't hear it, but it's just infinite ticks. That's fairly useful for consistent DOT pressure. It will increase your DPS by a little bit. So the only other thing worth pointing out with deep wounds is that it will extend the duration of your anti on your ultimate. So that is a little bit of utility worth pointing out. The only problem is that the other one, which is your Savage Satiation, which means it increases your lifesteal from Carnage. That is a lot of healing. I won't be able to demonstrate it right now, but that's a ton of extra healing off of your Carnage, which is one of your big frontline tools. So the weird thing is that you have deep wounds, which probably will feel a little bit more consistent when you're able to wound enemies like on the front line, but Savage Satiation is also really good on the front line. So it really, your mileage may vary. I generally prefer Savage Satiation for the consistency that I can land it, and I like the lifesteal more than just a little bit more of DOT, but honestly, both kind of have the same goal. Okay, so let's talk about Mauga really fast. So we'll talk about the minors first. Kinetic Bandolier. Overrun reloads up to 150 ammo while charging. This is pretty self-explanatory. You use a lot of weapons, and then you overrun. Notice that it's not immediate 150. It needs to extend up to that duration. That's fairly useful. 2 hearts is interesting though. While on objective, Mauga counts as 2 heroes and regenerates 20 health per second. Now, this is not ult charge for you, but you will recover more HP while on the objective. Now, crucially, this is not any objective. It would have to be a payload for the 20 health per second. That's 10 more than the average. But the real reason why you would potentially run this would be the fact that Mauga caps points faster because 2 heroes cap points, I believe 33% faster, somewhere around those lines, but you will cap points faster and you will push the payload, not push robots, but you will push the payload faster. It's a pretty nice utility here. It might emphasize you playing more on the objective, which as Mauga is fine, but it really, your mileage may vary. If you find yourself diving a lot, taking angles, flanking, going aggressively, Kinetic Bandolier will provide a little bit of utility. Otherwise, 2 hearts is better. Now, the second one is the much more interesting one where you're going to have to make your decisions. Firewalker is overrun, ignites enemies hit. I'll demonstrate that one in a second, but first, combat fuel. So basically doing damage with your weapon, those dinkies, utilizing either your fire or just actually hitting people in the head, will grant you a little bit of temporary overhealth on your next use of cardiac. So I don't have it activated right now, but if I built up a lot of passive cardiac, I then press E, which is my cardiac. That's damage reduction, that's overhealth, and I get 100 extra overhealth on my cardiac. That's decent if you're not diving, not going super aggressive, and mostly focusing the enemy front line. Firewalker, I find to be really good if you're going aggressively and connecting. And what that means is that even brushing somebody with your overrun sets them on fire, generating overhealth. So what you mean is then as soon as you shoot them, you're generating overhealth, right? So remember, that's how you generate overhealth in Mauga is you shoot burning targets. But even if you don't get the crits on them, watch their HP. Guys, that's a lot of damage. That's like, I think, 80 damage just for running past a target. And this combos with your slam. So if you want to get something really saucy here, you can actually run in and slam. What this means is you hit somebody and slam them. Oh, I canceled it, shoot. I forget, you gotta let it go out, my bad. Okay, you guys didn't see that? Edit that out, edit that out, edit that out. If you hit somebody and you slam, guys, look at that. That's just me running into them and slamming them. So it's ridiculous. It's like, you not only do you set them on fire with 70, 80 damage, whatever, you can actually hit the slam as well. Even if you don't hit the crit and just hit the one just outside, that's still a large chunk of their HP bar. So if you find yourself going in aggressively, diving a lot as Mauga, which oftentimes you should be nowadays, this perk is really, really good. Orisa perks. Okay, so this one's pretty interesting here. So Heat Dissipator, Primary Fire, Critical Hits, Refund Heat. So if you find yourself actively trading frequently on the front line, it's really good. So if I'm playing like, here's a great example right here, right? So I select Heat Dissipator, her gun overheats. You can see it in the middle, so you can't shoot forever. But if you're playing versus Orisa or Mauga, versus not a great example, Roadhog, right? I just don't overheat my weapon. I can basically shoot infinitely. I start to overheat. So anything that you're critting a lot of, this is the way to go. Now, if you aren't spending a lot of time in the front line. The other one is Fleeting Bulwark, which grants an additional 100 overhealth when you press Fortify initially. That's really, really good in all other circumstances because it gives you a burst, a little bit of survivability when you press Fortify. More than the 100 that you get, you actually get 200 Fortify. Now keep in mind that health does decay after a few seconds, so you don't keep it for the entirety of Fortify, but it allows you to survive burst damage really, really well. And honestly, just you're gonna take damage when you press Fortify anyway, so you're gonna get the 100 overhealth value basically every single time. But we'll quickly talk about the other majors. So these ones are much more interesting. Protective Barrier is you convert your Javelin Spin instead to launch a barrier, which is pretty cool, right? Like that's really disorienting. Which is pretty good, right? Like it only doesn't last forever, but it is on a relatively low cooldown. We love to see it. Now, the key thing with this one is that you lose your Javelin Spin, which is a really good way of backing up and pushing forward. So if you find yourself moving around a lot on the map and you're not basically AFK playing Overwatch 1 simulator, this perk is not good. This perk is only good if you find yourself holding an angle static, Circuit Royale, sniper matchups, and whatever. If that's not your choice, the other perk, Charge Javelin, is infinitely better. You hold your right click or you hold the charge javelin and then you can throw it. And basically what it allows you to do is you have more knockback. It increases its speed, so it's a lot easier to hit. And if you charge it all the way, it actually goes through multiple enemies. The main reason why you'd use this is more for the projectile speed though, because it just makes it a lot more consistent to hit. It becomes almost hit scan. And obviously having further knockback is really good. So Charge Javelin is just really freaking good if you're moving around a lot. I'd probably pick that around 90% of the time, but 5-10% of the time, Protective Barrier can be useful if you're not moving around a whole lot. So Ramattra's interesting. They did buff one of his perks recently, but I still think it's relatively straightforward. So first off, Void Surge, that's the one we're gonna be choosing most of the time. And that basically just increases your DPS of your primary fire. There just isn't a whole lot more to it. Do more damage, do more shield damage, do more tank damage, do more damage, period. You do have to be using continuous fire to exploit it, but it's really, really, really good. The other one is Void Barrier's duration and size is increased by 25%. That one's also fairly useful, but not so much for the size as it is for the duration. You get an extra second basically of the shield. And if you find yourself in like these big poke trades, like at long distances where you're not really hitting the primary fire because it's so far away, the shield duration is pretty useful. Very rarely do you see Ramattra's shield being broken, so having an extra second of it is actually fairly useful. So I would experiment with it, but you'll probably choose the raw damage. Extreme distances, the other one's pretty decent, right? Now, major. Nanite Repair is Ramattra's healed for 75 health while within Ravenous Vortex. So if you're within your Vortex, you get healed for 75 health. Now that sounds really good, but that's not including the DPS passive, and that's also giving up one of the best perks in the game at all, which is while Ravenous Vortex is airborne, you use E again, so you press your button to detonate it at any point, dealing 50 damage and pulling enemies downward. The reason why this is so strong is not only does it give you a lot more control of when you want to apply it, right? It also deals 50 extra damage, which is massive. The ability to do have a more effective, more flexible, more consistent Vortex is really nice. Do you have a more damaging Vortex is even better. And so you're gonna find yourself using this almost exclusively without exception. The other one just got buffed. The healing is better than it used to be, and that's nice, but I find the other one just to be a lot more consistent. Reinhardt. So Reinhardt's actually a little bit more interesting than it used to be. It used to be pretty straightforward here, but you're gonna find that Crusader's Fire is actually pretty decent. Refund a charge of Fire Strike when you stun an enemy overfilling up to 3. This includes pins, this includes Earth Shatter. And so what this means is if you look here, if I do this really fast here, look at my fire strikes when I shatter this. Goes all the way up to 3. Now it caps at 3. So if you pin somebody, if you shatter somebody, you can have used all your fire strikes here, and I'm watching me generate one right back again. Right back to 2. But this goes up to 3. So I really like this perk in congested space. Chokes, brawl maps, not when I'm pinning around a whole lot. Because when I'm pinning around a whole lot, the Crusader's Resolve while using Barrier Field, your passive health regeneration triggers 75% sooner is freaking great. If you're playing Dive Reinhardt flanking on these big wide open maps, which you often should, not this is a playstyle, it is the correct way to play on wide open maps if you're losing that frontline trade. That is really, 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 really good. 75% sooner is 4 seconds faster, I believe. No, it's faster than that, chat. It's faster than that, chat. It's 4.5 seconds faster because they just changed. So it's 4.5 seconds faster. So you only have to wait a second and a half after taking damage to shield and then regenerate your HP immediately. So I really like Crusader's Resolve on more open space. I really like Crusader's Fire on more congested space because you're going to be taking continuous damage and you won't be taking it in the heal passive anyway. Major. Shield Slam. While Barrier's Field is active, use shield to damage and knock back enemies. That's pretty useful. Crushing Victory. Charge damage grants 10% temporary overhealth for 50% of the damage dealt. That's also pretty useful. I generally like shield slam if I find myself playing versus a lot of crowd control where I'm not going to be really dropping my shield to go for crazy pins anyway. But crushing victory is pretty good versus those tank trades where you're not really in danger of crowd control. Let me give you guys an example. Ramattra, Kiriko, Lucio. There's not really a lot of CC there that's going to prevent you from hitting the pin. And Ramattra, it's really important in the shield, the tank trade to hit that pin. If you hit that pin, you're getting 50% of the damage that you did from that pin, which is a lot. In addition to that, that also includes if you pin people off the map or if you even bump them with your pin. Check this out. You see, I just tapped them with my pin. There's 50 extra overhealth right there. So it's a very useful skill. It's not the most OP. It's one of the weaker major perks, but it's still useful enough in situations when you're not going to be. Now, if you don't like that, or you're not going to be pinning a lot because there's a lot of crowd control, Shield Slam is useful. I believe it's 50 damage. I might be corrected on that one, but it's nice because it allows you to continue to apply pressure on the enemy front line and knock back targets without actually having to risk yourself to damage. I like both of Ryan's because I find both of those perks to be situational. They're not the strongest perks, but they definitely have very clear niches about when they're a little bit better. Roadhog. Oh, Roadhog is dumb. Roadhog, pick, pin up, and don't choose the other perk. Hitting. Look at this. Look at your vape. I did not choose a perk. I'm an idiot. Hang on. Okay. Check this out. So you see my vape in the middle of my screen here? You guys remember how the hazard perk worked? Check this out. That resource is used first, unlike hazards perk, but the difference, or the similarities rather, is that it also doesn't expire. So if I hit a trap, there's no rush. That resource will never expire. Now, crucially, it's not the first bit of resource that you're using is yours. You are going to burn that first, but look how long I vape. I mean, that's just insane. This is really, really good. Using it to reload ammo is like a quality of life, but that's also more of a skill check on you. You shouldn't be really going for hook when you're needing to reload anyway. This is just much more consistent value. Now, Majors is a little bit more interesting. I think Hydrogen Exposure heals allies for 50% of its healing is fairly useful if you're not finding yourself taking a lot of angles. But on most maps, most situations, Invigorate, increasing your movement speed by 30%, especially when you factor in the fact that you can use that with your trap perk. Let's enjoy my dive Roadhog. You move a lot faster, which means you can not only take angles and flanks faster, but let's be honest, 90% of you stinky Roadhog players are just going to be using that to run away, and run away a lot more effectively. So it's a really good perk. Both of them are really good, and yeah. All right, Sigma. Sigma's pretty interesting. I think the minors are not that interesting. It's pretty straightforward. Massive Impact sounds cool. Knockdown duration increase up to 3 seconds based on travel distance. That is a long stun, but it's also a really freaking hard stun to land. Let me give you guys an example. This is the accretion. Watch the standard bot. Didn't last all that long, right? So how the... Okay, I had the perks. I need to get better at doing this, guys. We're learning. We're learning. Hang on. It's decent, but it's not great. And any accretion that's longer than that is basically a complete and total dice roll. So it's going to be hilarious when it happens, but it's almost never going to happen. I want to see those 3 seconds, man. I want to see those 3 seconds. This is proving my point. I mean, that's a long stun, right? But how often are you going to hit accretion like that, okay? I mean, you get what I'm saying? Like, basically never. The other thing is the accretion, the kinetic grasp reduced cooldown on accretion. So that one is a lot more consistent. Let me showcase what I'm talking about. By the way, these guys do no damage, right? Like, no damage, right? Like, very little damage. So if I kinetic grasp that, I'm not going to get much of a cooldown reduction, right? So 10... Okay, this is not exactly proving my point here. Oh, I didn't have the perk selected. I am so bad at this! Ah! Go back! Okay, so let's try it now. So 10. I mean, look at that. 5 seconds if I eat 200 damage. 6 seconds. I don't know exactly what the exact calculation is, but you basically eat like 1 Hanzo shot and you just reduce your accretion by like 4 or 5 seconds. It's ridiculous. So like, look at it again. Look at it again. 1, 2, 3, that's fine. Doesn't matter, 5 seconds every time. It's just, it basically halves the cooldown of your kinetic grasp or accretion consistently. Not occasionally, consistently. So basically every time you use kinetic grasp, you're basically gonna be getting your accretion again. It's the only perk to choose 99.999% of the time. Now the other major, that's where things get a little interesting. So every 5 hits with hyperspheres, your next successful quick melee levitates, knocks away enemies. We'll talk about that in a second. Levitation, activate and hold double jump to briefly levitate upward. I won't demonstrate that right now, but you can get a decent amount of height. The crucial one to demonstrate is the direct strikes with hyperspheres. So that looks like this. So direct strike, look in the meter in my bottom right here. You can see my fist here. Direct strike, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's enough. Check this out. Whapa! And it actually knocks him back pretty hard. The other reason why this is useful is it actually increases your melee damage as well. So you do more damage with your melee. It's not even a normal 40 damage. I want to say it doubles your melee damage somewhere around there. So I would say anytime that there's verticality on the map, the levitate is really good. Anytime there's not as much verticality, especially if you're dealing with like a brawl tank, like a Ryan or a Ramattra or Orisa or Zarya, this son of a gun is going to keep you out of trouble. Let's give you a good old brawl tank. Ramattra running it down your gullet, punch him away, right? It works really well, and it does more damage too. Okay, Winston time. So the Destructibles, they keep trying to buff the short circuit. The Winston Tesla does 50% more damage to deployable objects, such as turrets and barriers. That's kind of useful versus Illari. I believe does it apply to alt fire, chat? I feel like I should know this. So yeah, okay, it's gonna apply to your alt fire, which is pretty useful. I mean, the big uses are gonna be things like Symmetra, Torbjorn, Illari turrets. You can and will break most shields faster as well. So like Orisa's deployable, we talked about earlier, enemy Winston, Rhine shield, Sigma shield, stuff like that, you will be doing 50% more damage to this, which is not nothing. It's pretty good, right? I would say this one is very mid, but it is situationally very useful depending on the heroes that you're running. Short circuit, right? Heavy landing is pretty busted though, so it is a bit of an opportunity cost. And what that means is that when you talk about primal rage, you just jump, whatever, okay, more damage, right? But if you end up getting any height, you can see the meter in my middle of my screen, and that's just the landing damage, okay? The best part about it is you get partial credit. So like that right there, even though I didn't charge the meter up that much, that's like an extra 20, 25, 30 damage on every jump during Primal Rage. So I would say that one's probably the more consistent one, even if you're not super confident in your Primal Rage mechanics, because that stuff is gonna change breakpoints like crazy. But Short Circuit is gonna be the one to use if you're ever placing up versus Sem, Torbs, EVRs, and a bunch of them. So situationally that one, but more often than not the other. Now, in terms of situational, if you're tired of hearing that word, it gets even more crazy when we talk about the other majors. This one is very situational because both are very good. Barrier Projector heals allies within for 30 health per second. Now, if you look in the middle here, my barrier lasts 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, I think 8 seconds, I believe is the duration. So if you're doing the math, that's 240 health, ignoring DPS passive. And this applies to you. You are an ally. This is not clarified in the text, but you will heal yourself for 250 health if you're staying inside your bubble. Now, there's two disclaimers here. Number one, that's making a lot of assumptions. One, that you're not bubble dancing, so like kind of jumping in and out of the bubble. And number two, that your bubble's gonna last that long, which it generally won't. But if you even get 3 seconds or 4 seconds out of your bubble consistently, depending on the composition, there's no Bastions, Roadhogs, whatever, Torbjorn's murking your shield, this perk is great. And crucially, despite what Kiriko said, because he screwed up with his testing, as long story short, this does give you ult charge. So if I take damage here, I'll demonstrate it right now. Destroy me, thank you, a little bit more. And there it is. So you get a pretty decent chunk of ult charge from it. You can see it right there. Very, very, very useful. You can look at how that stacks to my passive heal. It's really, really, really nice. Now that's optimal. That's never going to happen. And because of that, the Chain Lightning perk is really good if your bubble's breaking faster than 3 seconds. You're playing versus full counters. They're going crazy. Chain Lightning is really good because it's going to allow you to chain that alternate fire onto multiple different targets within a certain distance. So it's just free value. It's free ult charge. It's free pressure. It allows you to do some safe pressure while you're waiting for your next bubble cycle. So I would say generally revitalizing barrier for bubbles lasting consistently longer than 2 or 3 seconds. Otherwise, Chain Lightning is the way to go. Ball is pretty straightforward. Steamroller, 100% damage more to tanks, only really useful in 66. I know people are like, oh, but it's 100% more damage, 60 more damage to the Orisa? You know, and I'm being a little bit dishonest with that comparison, but honestly, it's just not good when you compare it to Pack Rat. 100 additional health on, that means a mini health back healing you for 175. Now, what that means is your uptime is going to skyrocket. Every time you go out to grab a health back, you're coming right back in significantly faster. It's hard to measure that in terms of damage and elimination numbers, but it matters so much more. It's so much better than Steamroller. Outside of 66, where there can be a little bit more nuance. Highly recommend Pack Rat. Basically, no other reason to choose the other perk. Chasm disagrees with me. Chasm's allowed to disagree with me, but Chasm is wrong. Pack Rat is too good for uptime. If you're talking about the punch of what you do, sure, but 60 more damage rarely changes any break points when it comes to tanks in this game. Now, major hang time, pile driver winds up longer, gaining air control and dealing up to 50% more damage. Very useful. You just basically get a big beefy slam. That's really, really nice. I mean, we've seen it for a long time now. It's good. Air control is nice. It does mean that you're moving a little bit longer in the air, but the 50% more damage is pretty decent, and that's something that you're gonna consistently be able to use. Now, the transfer efficiency has been buffed a little bit recently, and that one is situationally useful. Reactivating adaptive shields, that means sharing your shields right there. It allows you to, oh, there's no ally around, that's why it's not letting me share. Reduces its cooldown by 1.5 seconds per ally affected and the transfer cost is reduced by 50 seconds. What this means, as I use this here, is if I share shields with 2 targets, I get a 3-second cooldown reduction. Okay, I didn't get it on 3 there. You get a 3-second cooldown reduction on adaptive shields. That's a big deal. The other thing that you get out of it as well, I need to change these spots so they don't murk so fast. So if I go here and I adaptive shields and I share, I lose all of my shields, right? 100 shields right there. They're all of them gone. Both of them are gone there. I don't know if I can do it in the practice range, mates, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Yeah, you can see it. So I kept 50% more of my HP and I didn't lose all my overshields. That will be a lot more obvious when I'm actually using my adaptive shields around enemies and then going to share with my teammates. So I'll do that really fast. So if I do it around my enemies, I get the extra HP, I transfer to allies, and I only lose 50% of the HP. This is really, really good. If you're playing with a lot of dive characters, or you're in situations where you're hitting large numbers of enemies because everyone's fighting in a clump. So based off of enemy and friendly spacing, it can be a really good perk. I think it's situational. I do think it probably needs to be tested a little bit more, but having a consistent 3-second, 4.5 second lower cooldown on adaptive shields, and then being able to consistently share without losing your own effectiveness, I think is probably pretty underrated, even though the other perk is decent.
One quick disclaimer for the Wrecking Ball boop perk. Keep in mind that the tank damage is actually pretty significant anytime you do what's called a spin to win strategy, where you basically grapple and re-boop, boop, 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 boop. That tank damage adds up a lot in situations where that's appropriate. Now, the reason why I'm still not completely guaranteed on giving that perk 100% pick rate is the fact that that's not always going to be relevant depending on the map, the situation, or the composition that you're playing into. Wrecking Ball is fine at tank pressure, but it's far from his most important priority, and there's a real danger here that if you over prioritize this kind of tank damage with this perk, especially in mid to low ranks, you're going to end up playing Wrecking Ball the wrong way and losing a lot of value. So for now, I'll recommend both, with a disclaimer that they're both situational depending on the circumstance that you're playing, and that just because you choose the tank perk doesn't mean that you should prioritize on just spin to winning tank.
Okay, Zarya, so this just got recently changed, but I don't think it changes too much. Jump ups is the secondary fire self knockback. It means that you almost jump twice as far as you normally do. So I mean, this is really freaking good. There's gonna be so many positions you can get without this perk, or with this perk, that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get. But if you're not moving like this, if the map is completely bone dry, flat, Graviton Crush is fairly useful. 40% of enemy max health is decent. It's also effective versus tanks, and that means that obviously this perk becomes a little bit more attractive in 6v6. Now for the major energy lance, particle beams pierces enemies while over 50 energy. I'll demonstrate that really fast. Basically what this means is that if I'm high charge, I'm going to be able to as I waste the bubble here, I'm going to be able to pierce through multiple enemies at once. Okay, so there's the 50 charge, and then now you can see it, I'm piercing directly between 2 targets. This is decent. I mean, both for majors are pretty situational. If you find that the enemies are often clumped up, like there's just a big brawl stack, it's really easy to kind of aim for the back line and then just hit the tank along the way. It's just basically free value. The range on it obviously is not that far because you're talking about your primary fire, right? So it's only so good. But the other perk isn't amazing either, and it's only really good if you're actually actively being dove on your backline frequently, in which case being able to activate their health regeneration is nice, and increasing movement speed by 25%. That's really, really nice. And it's really good if you got a DPS that's going in. So if you feel your backline's getting dove a lot, it's a decent major perk. Spotter. If you feel like you got a Reaper or a Genji or somebody aggressively pushing in, heck, even a Bastion going aggressive, Spotter is pretty good. Other than that, Energy Lance, everybody's clumped. That's going to be your consistent way to output a lot of damage. You won't use it every fight, but the fights when you will use it, you're going to notice a lot more damage. Okay, so Ashe's perks don't really change her gameplay loop all that much, but I generally kind of find more consistent value out of Sidewinder. I think there's just a lot more opportunity to rotate. It's not just about defensibility, but just about to rotate a lot faster, to reposition to different high grounds, to rotate left, to rotate right a little bit faster. I think there's definitely a world where you could be just vomiting your primary fire from your rapid fire perk onto a tank and just basically doing as much DPS as you possibly can. But the problem is that yes, they deal a little bit less damage. Overall, it's more damage, but you really don't want to get caught in an endless reload loop, because if you just dump all of your damage to get slightly more damage on a tank, then you're going to be caught in a reload loop at an awkward time. And it's unlike the other characters, obviously it's not like a reload and you're done. It's just a little bit less efficient, and there aren't that many times where you're just going to be dumping your entire clip into a tank anyway, so you want to be a little bit more selective about what you do. So rapid fire could situationally be useful versus any tank that's just is really fat and just really easy to shoot, but probably more consistently most of the time you're going to be taking the Sidewinder. Now the major one is where things get interesting. The Dynamite has 40% increased detonation radius while airborne and refunds ammo when thrown. That definitely is more useful than it sounds because it just makes it significantly easier to hit Dynamite on targets that are further away. You're going to hit more targets, and 40% larger detonation radius does mean you get a much bigger surface area than even just 40%. The problem with that though is that the other perk is just a little bit more consistent. Generally with the way medium to high level Overwatch is played is that very rarely do you have giant clumps of enemies that you're getting 3 and 4 and 5 man Dynamite as much. So you're oftentimes just going to be dynamiting a squishy like, oh, there's a Genji there, Dynamite the Genji, right? And yes, maybe you hit somebody else with it, but that's kind of all Dynamite's used for in 5v5. You're not really using it for big clumps of enemies. So I could see Air Burst being useful in 66. You're going to hit a lot more targets with it, but most of the time in 5v5, you're going to want to use Viper Sting, which is hitting 2 consecutive scoped shots on a target deals 25 extra damage and reloads 2 ammo. So you have the same ammo reload, but you're rewarded with a slightly better breakpoint. So if I demonstrate that really fast, let me grab, I won't quite grab the perk just yet. So let me just kill this target really fast. So what that means is if I do a scope shot 1, scope shot 2, that's kind of where I'm at right there. So I'm at a point in time where I can do 1 more scope shot and he almost dies, okay? That's great, that's nice and all. Then I choose the perk, which is Viper Sting. This is a 250 HP robot here, okay? 1, 2, 3. You hear the little right? That changes the breakpoints and body shots. You can even look at this from a headshot perspective as well. So this is with the perk now. 1, 2, kills the target, right? So it just gives you slightly better breakpoints versus 250 HP targets, and you get the reload as well, which is probably going to be a little bit more consistent because 2 consecutive scope shots probably happens a little bit more frequently than your Dynamite cooldown, which is 12 seconds. So again, it's just about consistency of output with Ashe's perks, which is why I like Sidewinder and Viper Sting, but there are niche situations where the other 2 might be useful. So this one is spicy. This one is a real spicer. So Bastion has probably one of the most interesting perk sets in the entire game. And I say that as a compliment for sure. So if we look at the perks here, you've got Smart Bomb, which is more knockback and no longer damages you, Armored Artillery. So I think this one is very situational. I generally will find more consistent value out of Smart Bomb. Way more consistent because you just get more boost from your nade. So if I do it without the perk, that's pretty decent, right? 25% more means you're going to be going a lot further. Notice as well, it damages me for about 43, which is really annoying, but I do it now, and I do go noticeably further and higher. Wow, great, beautiful, good to get in, good to get out, and I don't hurt myself when I do it. That's really consistent. But guys, the other one is also really good. So let me actually demonstrate what that looks like. I like this one a lot on more enclosed maps where my mobility is less valuable. So if I'm playing like in a Brawl Mirror, Lijiang Towers, a lot of short range characters, I'm getting dove a lot maybe. If I pick this perk, check this out. Yeah, so we'll get this perk as well. Let me actually take some damage here. So I'm just getting blasted, right? Like I'm in the act of being dove, right? Oh man, I'm dying. Check this out. Check my HP in the bottom left here. I know chat's in the way. 300 overhealth. Bam, 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 bam. And the animation of the ult's really fast, so you can just immediately pop that. Now, the other thing as well, and I don't think people realize this, but he gets his damage reduction. So look at his passive here. You can see it in the middle. Ironclad, reduced damage taken while transformed. That applies to your ultimate as well. So not only do you get the 300 overhealth, but that 300 overhealth is extra HP because it's damage reduction HP as well. So if you're, that really kind of changes the dynamic of how you use the ultimate now. So you can actually use your ultimate as like, I'm gonna take an aggressive angle, I'm being dove, they're running on top of me, maybe I don't have my turret form anymore, maybe even I do have my turret form, I pop my ult, it's really, really good. And it's actually incredibly hard to kill you during that, even at a higher level, because you not only get the 300 overhealth, not only do you get the damage reduction, but you also don't have a head hitbox when you're ulting, to my knowledge. I'm pretty sure you don't have a head hitbox. Okay, now this one is, I think, a lot more personal expression. So when I said I like the nade perk on more open spaces, more space to move around, I think that same metric applies to the self-repair here. So I'm gonna go ahead and select that one, and that means that you get a new button, your E, if you're on PC, which just allows you to heal. And this is on a resource, I think. Yeah, so you don't see it in the middle of your screen, you only see it when you take damage, which is kind of nice. So check it out. You see the middle of the resource? And I can just stop by pressing it again. It's not, I need to set it to where it's toggle, actually. I don't like that it's toggle right now, that's a mistake. But yeah, it regens, you heal yourself. If I try to see how much it heals in total, let's actually take a little bit more damage. Let's get one more rock here. If I die, I swear. Okay, whatever. So passive heals kicked in a little bit. So I'd say it's about 300, 350 healing. You can look it up on Wiki. It's a decent amount for sure. And it doesn't keep healing afterwards. So it's good. I like this kind of, like I said, with the nade perk when you want to flank, when you want to move around. There's a lot of space. You can't just AFK in a short range off angle and shoot tank. You got to kind of take some proactivity. You need the heal. You need the self-sustain to be able to do that effectively. It's not the most powerful self-sustain. You can't shoot while you're doing it. You have to cancel one or the other, but it's really good. Now, crucially, you can also do it while you're turreted. So you can actually get the damage reduction of your turret while also shooting, right? So that's really nice. It's very, very big quality of life. Now, the other one, which I do think it's important to demonstrate because it's maybe the opposite, when you don't need as much self-sustain or don't need to be flanking as much, you do have an option for a different weapon entirely during your turret. Lindholm's explosive. So that means that your assault weapon slowly fires explosive shells instead of a rotary cannon. Now, I think the reason why people get confused with this one is because kind of how the weapon functions, I believe, differently than turret. So obviously turret doesn't headshot, but this is a nerfed tank in the practice range. It's not really faster than your normal weapon on killing a tank. It's not really that great for shield break. It's not even that great for killing tanks. So this is without the perk, right? It's just faster to just shoot the freaking tank with your turret. The reason why this is useful is because of what burst damage is. What burst damage is it allows you to quickly and surprisingly murder squishies. Let me give you guys an example of what that might look like. You turn the corner and you see a Bastion, you're gonna have to get behind cover, of course. But this immediately puts you at less than half HP on a direct. Immediately, bam. Immediately. So you just have a different mindset of what you're going for with Bastion. You're not necessarily hard flanking. Well, you might be, but you don't have the self heal. You're not necessarily just AFK shooting shield, but you have almost a sniper-esque pick potential if you get a good angle. And exactly, right, you can combo that with your nade as well. You can go, can you rocket jump? You can, so that's another perk, right? But you can go bam, bam, 1, 2. And you can fire it independently, your nade that is, independently of your primary fire. So you can rocket jump for mobility. Notice that you did self-damage, unlike the nade, right? You can rocket jump independently. You can fire both, and you just have quicker bursts on the squishy. So check this out. Ba-bam. Look at that. Bam! 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 I don't think, does it last shorter or am I crazy? I might be crazy, guys. But yeah, it just changes kind of the dynamic of what you're shooting with the character, which is really cool. It's definitely not the hard flank Bastion playstyle. I wouldn't say it's definitely not, it's probably not. It's definitely not the AFK shoot tank Bastion. It is the kind of, you take a short range off angle, almost like a Cassidy, and you just go bop bop, you know? It's good. It's also good with the verticality too, because you do have like now 2 sources of verticality, and especially if you combine that with the no damage off of your nade, I mean, you can do rocket jump, and you could do all sorts of crap, right? Like, I mean, look at this, right? Like, you can get all sorts of stuff here. So, that's gonna take some getting used to, but if you can get used to it, there's a lot you can do with it. This one's a little bit spicy. I have had some of my friends that think that I vastly underrate the high noon perk, or the fan the hammer perk, which is basically you can hold down right click like you normally would, but if you aim at the head, you can actually do a lot of damage. I'm not gonna lie with you guys, there's definitely a world where this is useful. If you get in a tank's face, that's going to do more damage than just fan the hammering. It's absolutely fine. The problem is how frequently that's useful. Now, the good news is that both aren't great. They're both kind of situational. There's a new high noon perk which allows you to regenerate HP for each target that you have on Deadeye. Doesn't mean skull, just target that you're currently locking in on. So it allows you a little bit more survivability. It's very consistent. Fan the Hammer is not so consistent, but has way higher payout. Now notice that you're not critting for the full damage when you fan the hammer. So, it depends. Are you playing Mauga? Playing with Roadhog? Are you playing with tanks that are getting in your face? Yeah, sure, quick draw. Keep in mind, again, you don't have to individually click the control. You can just hold it down like you normally can. I believe back in the day you couldn't do this and why I was so turned off by this perk. I might be wrong, but I swear you couldn't hold down right click. You just had to tap each individually, which I hated. Now you can just hold it down. So that completely changes the dynamic of this perk. Yeah, so you used to have to hold down, but so now it's actually fairly decent. So I would say maybe quick draw is a little bit my favorite personally. If there's any tank that I can punish, If not, even the odds is just free value, I guess, even if it's not all that useful. Now, the last perk is where things get really spicy. I'm gonna shout out one of my students. I believe it was a Diamond player, Masters player. I used to say, yo, critical hits with primary fire reduces the cooldown of combat roll, which reloads your weapon and reduces damage by 3 seconds. That's broken, bro. You could just get roll off a cooldown. So I used to say that. I was like, I mean, it makes sense, right? Well, he watched like 4 or 5 professional level games. And he said the amount of times where that actually did anything in terms of they actually used the roll. Not like, oh, it saved their life. It just, did they actually use the roll? Was like, he said like twice. It's one of those things that's like, it just doesn't actually is not as useful as you think it is. It's not that it's bad. It just isn't as useful as I think it is. On the flip side, bang bang, Cassidy throws a second flashbang that travels farther than the normal one, which is pretty nice, but both flashbangs deal 30% reduced damage. The problem with that is you're still dealing 40% more damage. So you have a slightly further reach on your CC and almost 50% more damage on your flashbang. The other reason why this is big is because, as always, we gotta question breakpoints. 250 HP target, doesn't quite get the kill, but if they even catch a cold, they're dead. Any sort of chip damage, they're dead at all. But that's not all. If we look at targets that are, let's say, Tracer, body shot. So this is one of those perks that's going to be consistently more damage, consistent more flexibility with how you can use flashbang, and even a couple of situations where it actually changes the breakpoints of what you're killing. So I've just exclusively recommended Bang Bang. Doesn't matter whether you're playing into dive or whether you're taking off angles and dueling people, it's just more damage almost all the time. And more damage is consistently going to be more valuable. Okay. Echo. Echo is weird. I think generally enhanced duplication is just better. Duplicate can also target allies. Sounds cool, but more often than not, any of the enemy team's 5 teammates are going to be, one of them is going to be fine. And more often than not with Echo as well, you're not really obsessing who to copy, but where, like what angle. So enhanced duplication just means your ultimate just lasts longer, which means you get more ultimate. It's just consistent value. And if you're able to build that first ultimate, which most of the time you probably should, you just get more. It's just good. So I think enhanced duplication is generally 95% of the time going to be the better play, unless there's literally nothing in the enemy team that you like and or you want to do a cool combo with somebody in your backline. The one thing is, as Orb is saying, is that you can copy your allies, so there's a little bit more consistency of getting that copy off, but that's just generally not as much of a problem. Now, this is where things get hairy. High beam says focusing beam eliminations resets flight cooldown. That is situationally insane. Incredible value. Now, you could probably guess where I'm going with this because it's one of those moments where it just sounds amazing until it's not. What? The problem is 225 HP. The problem is Beam's DPS just not being the same as it used to be. The problem is Season 9, whatever you may have you. Beam is just not as important as it used to be. Primary fire, especially since the recent buff, and stickies, just matters so much more for your dueling potential. You will finish kills with Beam not as often as you would think. So it's cool, it's good if she was 250. If she could have more motivation and more safety in terms of closing the distance and using it more often, it's just not gonna be as useful as you think. If your beam hit the target at any point in time, you're gonna get the reset. Again, sure, just still not something as often as you'd think. It's not bad, it might be fine. I just don't know that it's as an obvious of a choice. Now, the other one is interesting. When I talk with the developers, there was this fantasy of like carpet bombing, like area control, but that's not really why it's used. Again, I don't think this one's like really straightforward, but we'll kind of demonstrate what full salvo does. If you land every single sticky, you do a lot more damage. One of the things that's brought up in chat, which I think is a good point, is technically it's not free DPS because the animation, I believe, of the stickies is technically a little bit longer, so it's not quite as flowing. And generally because the targets move a lot more, you're gonna have a harder time landing it. So there isn't a lot of Echo players right now, but I would imagine it depends on what your goals are. If you're dumping stickies into tank and just murdering tanks, this is going to be a lot more damage. It's also a lot easier to get at least some of your stickies on the target. That being said, if you want just consistent value that, yeah, it's there, but at least it doesn't mess with my muscle memory, I would probably go with the beam perk. It just depends. The animation, again, I'll demonstrate. You guys just saw it. It's just a lot faster. I think both of Echo's majors kind of miss, to be honest with you guys, but if I'm playing Echo versus anything I'm not spamming, I'll take high beam, even though it's not the best. There just aren't a lot of the good points. Okay. Freja. I freaking told you guys this, but this perk people were sleeping on so incredibly much at the beginning. I freaking told you. And now people are like, it needs to get nerfed, it needs to get nerfed, it needs to get nerfed, it needs to get nerfed. Okay, so let me explain to you. A lot of people are like, oh, Frostbolt's 3 slow, it's so cancer, it's so strong. I agree. It's if they've got like a Roadhog or something that you can abuse with this, a Ram struggles with this as well. This is brutal. 3 regular bolts just means bop, bop, bop. They're gonna get slowed by 20%. Really good. It's not a bad perk. The problem is tracking instinct is just so much better. It's just so much better. And let me clarify why. Critical health enemies are revealed to you. First off, you can ping enemies behind walls, so your teammates can see where they are, right? They can't see the outline, but they'll see where they are. So that's great. It gives you more advantages in 1v1s, which is really important with how Freja plays. She's very much a role-playing, assassinate, murder you kind of a thing. But critical health enemies is 50% and under. Now, most of you guys in chat know that, but I don't think the average player does. Let me demonstrate that real fast. Who wins this 1v1 right now? How are you supposed to win this when I have freaking wall hacks on you? So even if I'm also half HP, I can do this and you have no idea where I am. And I know where you are. It just gives you pre-aim always. You always are able to pre-aim. But yeah, 50% wall hacks. I mean, literally anybody that's 50% wall hacks. The next perk is, I guess, slightly more situational, but still pretty much. The only reason it's more situational is because it's not quite as strong. And that is Relentless Barrage. I'll demonstrate that one really quick. Basically, direct hits with take aim, which means your scope shot, refund 4 automatic bolt ammo. I'm not going to demonstrate it, but to be honest with you guys, it basically means if you take a shot, spam, 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 take a shot, shoot, 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 take a shot, like scope, shoot, 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 scope, shoot, shoot, shoot. Like you're just weaving. You can basically like shoot forever almost if you like min-max it. That's not really how Freja plays. If there's a tank to abuse, sure. But more often than not, you're kind of going for isolated burst picks. That's what makes Freja really strong. That's what she's uniquely strong at. In theory, Relentless Barrage with the previous slow perk, that's like a nasty combo to abuse a tank. But I think our understanding of the game has gotten to the point where people realize that abusing tank and only tank isn't really a free ticket to Grandmaster like people think it is. The other problem is that the other perk, while not as strong, because Updraft's cooldown is nerfed back to 12 as of today, July, it's still really important to get quick dashes because quick dashes means more mobility means more bolts. So for this here, what this means is essentially I can go scope, where are my cooldowns? Okay, so scope, dash, scope. You just have another free dash when you use Updraft. Now, to be fair, it is 12 seconds now, not 10. It used to be a lot stronger with that. I mean, it's not significantly weaker, but it is still really good for the gameplay loop of what Freja does, which is using her Updraft for shots. And now you can it's just ridiculous. And getting that extra dash also as well means that you're more likely to have something to do while you're charging up your next dash. So I think the Updraft perk is probably still going to be the better perk, but Relentless Barrage isn't terrible if you're finding yourself in extended frontline traits. Okay, Genji. I think certain high-level players are getting this one wrong, and I know the examples, and I know there's going to be some reasons why, and as always, there's going to be nuance, but I think people get this one wrong. Genji dash. First one's pretty simple. Swift strike and wall climb resets double jump is cool. There are situations when that's useful, when there's a lot of verticality. Pharah's, Echo's, Flyers, you can actually get a lot more verticality out of this, and it's not a trash perk. The problem is that Dragon Blade swing gains 30% life deal is not necessarily like a wildly broken perk. It's just incredibly useful at something that Dragon Blade struggles with. Dragon Blade, you struggle to keep yourself alive. 30% life steal off of 110 blade swing is pretty nice. Like that's just enough to be able to keep you alive if you hit a couple of swings. So the reason why Dragon Source is basically almost always a must pick with very few exceptions is because it directly deals with a weakness of Genji in a fairly effective, if not completely unstoppable way. It's not that acrobatics is bad. Again, we just go back to what makes Dragon Blade inconsistent. Well, now that's much less of a problem. So I think this is really good. Should I say it? I'll say it. It was very inconsistent when perks were released. I myself gave feedback on fixing this. Okay, now this is the spice. Swift Strike deals 25 additional damage over time when used shortly after an elimination. Overrated. You need anything that is guaranteed off an elimination is inherently tended towards snowballing, but doesn't give you enough of an advantage an early fight. Now, I've seen some higher level players picking this because there's a guaranteed of healing, so I don't need the other perk. Bull. Free healing is free healing. And it doesn't matter if you've got freaking Funny Astro and Landon on your team, or you got Joe Schmo, Pick Your Booty 24. You know what I'm saying? Healing is healing. Even if you cancel deflect early, doesn't matter. Healing is healing. And to my knowledge, if it's consistent with the other perks, it also gives you ult charge. Self-healing with all the perks give you ult charge. So it's just consistent, and it's not reliant off of you getting elimination for it to get value. The other problem with blade twisting is it's 25 of damage over time. Now, there are definitely worlds where I think blade twisting could provide helpful breakpoints if the target isn't getting healed, but I just, like, for example, if it's 110 for blade swings, right? So technically 220 plus blade twisting. I mean, no, because you still have to hit the dash. No. I just think meditation is just so much more consistent. But yeah, I think meditation is really, really freaking consistent. I mean, I can just kind of demonstrate. I think what is deflect? Is it 2 seconds? Yeah, so just like... I mean, Tektra is in my chat as well. I've seen this perk do some crazy things as well. For example, Tektra the other day, we were playing a quick play game. We were playing a ranked game, and he was getting shot by a Winston and trying to live to get to a health pack, and he deflected the Winston and healed himself long enough to get to he would have died. He would have died if he had not deflected the Winston because it healed him, right? We've done that. I've seen it happen multiple times where random little interactions that allow you to get value out of it. So, but yeah. Now, Hanzo is weird. Frick, man. Sonic arrows hacking nearby health packs for 30 seconds. I think it's underrated. It's useful. It lasts a really freaking long time, but it's niche. Scatter arrows, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, nobody freaking plays Hanzo. To my knowledge, this is free value. Am I wrong? Are there any Hanzo players in chat? To my knowledge, scatter arrows is free value. You don't have to use scatter arrow differently or storm arrow differently, but sometimes it accidentally gets extra damage. I've heard mixed things. It seems like it's weird because of how the weapons function. So like, there's like a chant. Like, I think what it is that if you're trying to do like a rebound off the scatter, because it splits, you're not likely to get the full damage. Does that make sense? So like if I do like a rebound here, you kind of see what I'm saying? Like I'm getting all 3 arrows, so it works. But like, I guess if you're trying to bounce, you're gonna get like partial credit or whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm gonna admit ignorance to this one because I don't feel like I've fully studied enough to offer a recommendation. So if I don't know, I'm just gonna shut my yapper. But one thing I will say is that Sonic is probably underrated if you can play around it with the angles that you take. It's a long time. 30 seconds is a long time. So if it's useful, if the angle that you have has a health pack, it's really freaking good because remember, hacked health packs regenerate faster. And as somebody in chat says, you can hack health packs through walls. So I can demonstrate that really fast. So health pack. Yeah. That's the one. And there it is. Hacked health pack. Whee! And Sombra can't hack it. I don't think you get ult charge off of it, so because it's not technically a self-heal, so. Now the major perks, frick, man, this is also super weird. I've seen a lot of people talk about Dragon Fury as messing up muscle memory. So basically you get to charge your stuff a little bit faster. The one thing that Dragon Fury is really nice for is Storm Arrow. So basically after hitting an enemy with your primary fire, which is just your normal shot, you gain a 25% attack speed for 1 second. So what this means is you just charge your bow faster for 1 second, which really can throw off your muscle memory. It doesn't even have to be a headshot. But where this can be kind of useful is you just go bullet mode off of your Storm Arrow. It's fine, but you're gonna have to get used to changing a little bit of your muscle memory and how you play it, which is just, it's just awkward. The other thing is that the other perk is just not all that good. So that's going to be wall climb. So when you're climbing with your wall, your lunge cooldown is accelerated by 250%, which it's already a really low cooldown as it is. So you just basically have it instantly. Hanzo perks just are cheeks, man. They're just peaks. Peaks, I say cheeks. It's free value, sure, you can just get your lunge like whenever you want. And there's definitely some gimmicks where you can like wall climb, lunge, wall climb, lunge, wall climb, lunge, wall climb, lunge, you know. But like you're gonna have to choose which kind of cringe you want to deal with here, to be honest with you. Hanzo perk's bad. Sonic is probably the most consistent one in terms of like, you could definitely find a lot of ways you could use that, but yeah, your mileage may vary. Now, Lucio, who may be in my chat here, sent me a little doc here on his thoughts. So he's a high-level Junkrat one trick. My opinion on the outside is I think Nitro Boost is just the more consistent one, and I imagine TikTok is probably also the more consistent one as well. So I'm curious what Lucigo's thoughts are, because Lucio is a Junkrat one trick. I got a wall of text. What did we select? Oh, frag cannon from Lucio. Oh, spicy. Okay, so let's hear Lucigo's thoughts here. Minor Nitro Boost. The minor perk has not changed almost at all over time. Even the past change in aluminum frame. just gonna quickly skim through this. So yeah, I mean, trap is fine. Like, you can throw it further and you can see people through walls, which is like fine. I mean, it's not nothing. It's more useful for Junkrat than it was with Roadhog, because the way Junkrat plays his trap is not to enable one-shots, but to control space. So more range on trap is fine. It's just Nitro Boost is really freaking good because it, especially as you get better at the game, you're going to run into more people that can actually shoot the Riptire. So being able to quickly close the distance with Riptire is going to significantly increase the consistency of your Riptire value. So I would say Nitro Boost is not always the obvious choice. I guess if you're, you know, a mid to lower rank Junkrat and the map is really compressed, you may not need it. But most of the time, even in mid to low ranks, just being able to speed up your Riptire to land it easier is like really, 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 really good. You're not killing tanks with the Riptire anymore, but there are 4 other freaking targets you can kill with it. Use that. Now, my understanding of Frag Cannon is that it could kind of mess with your muscle memory. You have fewer shots, but those shots can travel a lot faster and more accurately. Whereas TikTok was like, you don't have to use it. It's just kind of free value, because if you let your mine sit, it gets a little bit more damage, a little bit more radius, and it's also harder to kill. But Lucio disagrees. So this perk started out as a viable choice, but has fallen really hard over time. The perk had 2 things going for it: the extra movement rollout potential, because it goes you further, and the bigger displacement on tanks, because mine, I actually think Junkrat's mine might be the most obnoxious crowd control that tanks have to deal with. Most obnoxious boop. Let's put it that way. The problem with this perk is how slow it is to set up. The game is fast paced. By the time you have it ready, it just takes too long. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, which means you don't get much time out of the bonus. The only niche this perk currently has in really enclosed defensive maps, so you already have an advantage to set up defensively and so on. Okay, makes sense. Frag Cannon, this perk has evolved a lot over time. The perk has become a favorite among the Junkrat community once everyone got past the initial problems with it. The perk updates Junkrat in the best way possible, makes him less spammy. You can make him a lot more accurate. Not only increases ceiling significantly, it also makes the first bounce faster. Okay, so the first bounce after you hit the initial shot also has a faster projectile speed. Must have high movement characters. Okay, yeah, makes sense. So, I mean, this definitely seems like something that people have kind of grown into liking, because it does what it was intended to do, and I'll demonstrate it. So, without it, this is kind of what we're dealing with. With it, this is what we're dealing with. I mean, you can just see it. It's faster, it's further, and as Lucio said, even the bounce goes faster as well. Now, crucially, I have 1 fewer bullet, so I can't just bam. You are going to be worse at spamming down chokes, almost exclusively. Your DPS uptime will be lower, but if you are taking angles and dueling, you will be more accurate. So, yeah. Good stuff. I guess you could see it a situation where that's not as useful when you're just spamming down a choke, but, you know, oh gosh, May. Fitting that Gavin Winter's in chat, because I freaking hate the May perks, but, you know, I'm gonna have to sit here and smile and try to coach people how to abuse other people with it. May perks suck. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and sugarcoat it with you guys. In terms of they suck, not because they're not good, they're very good. They're just really, really cringe and poorly designed. I'm just gonna say it. Okay, May's perks. Biting Cold. Secondary fire hits slow enemies by 20% for 1.5 seconds. Now, to my knowledge, I don't think this stacks anymore, but you can immediately access a 20% slow by hitting 1 freaking icicle. I don't have the perk selected. 1 freaking icicle. There it is. Guess what? Freaking good. Not only good versus tanks, because hey, you just slow them and do more damage, but also in duels, because a slow target is easier to shoot. So no longer are the days where you're exclusively having to do this to win a 1v1 necessarily. If you have good aim, well, guess what? Now you have better aim, because now your next shot's gonna be even easier to hit. Cringe. Cringe, 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 cringe. Moving on. Major perks. Now, by the way, that's a minor perk. We're not gonna even look at the wall duration perk, because it's almost exclusively useless when compared to the other things. 2 extra duration of wall is like unbelievably niche, and almost, I would never pick it. Even in a compressed map, never. Yeah. Okay. Deep Freeze says continuously hitting enemies with primary fire freezes them for a short time. Now, this perk is situationally fairly useful. Mostly going to be used, I mean, it's just any situation where you'd be primary firing. If there's a very mobile character right next to you, that's just going to allow you to hit the shot afterwards. It doesn't last near as long as the old freeze. So if you look at it here, and that's gone, right? It doesn't last very long, but it's going to be anything that you can reach with your primary fire, which is going to be here. You're going to freeze it, and you're going to slow it, and you're going to freeze it, and then you're going to hit your shots afterwards. It's a pretty darn good perk. Cryostorm is interesting because it does something similar in terms of enhancing one of your abilities and does damage with it. So basically when you pop your Cryo Freeze, you're going to slow everyone around you and deal 70 damage per second to nearby enemies. Honestly, I don't really think there's a clear answer here. Cryostorm basically discourages people from camping your ice block, but because it does 70 damage slowly over time, it doesn't really change how you use the ice block. I know people are out there, oh, imagine Graviton Surge and using your ice block. Not really that good. You're better off just headshotting people or primary firing them in the Graviton Surge most of the time. It's just basically there to prevent people from camping your ice block, but it doesn't change how you use ice block at all. You just still use ice block most of the time. I would say, sadly, for consistent value, Deep Freeze is probably going to be pretty useful in any sort of tank that you can abuse, or any sort of mobile DPS that's getting close to you. For example, that might be really annoying for, like, let's say a Reaper. You get a little freeze on him, you strafe. You can just focus on your strafing. You don't even have to worry about your aim as much until he freezes, and then you land one headshot or one body shot even. So you go, this is just disgusting. You strafe, whoa, don't hit me, body shot him. And he's still slowed. You know, it's just, it's disgusting. The ice block one is kind of okay, but I feel like it's a lot more niche because you really don't want people on top of you directly anyway. When you're, and so, yeah, I just think freeze is probably gonna be more consistent, and yeah. I will say one other thing as well that is talked about by Black Panther in my YouTube chat is versus tanks like Ramattra, you can, or even Mauga, right? You can stop them from blocking. Like, you'll pull Ramattra out of block when he's frozen, and Mauga obviously stops shooting to keep himself alive when he's frozen, even if it's just 1 second. So any tank that you can CC, but has a lot of sustain through that CC, you can CC him and stop him sustaining through that CC. I'm not saying that you should really be up in a Ramattra's face most of the time, but if you are, freeze perk is gonna feel pretty darn good. And yes, the freeze from this perk makes the ult freeze faster. Yes, it's cringe. Let me demonstrate that really fast. So, yep, it's not the fastest thing in the history of the world, right? But if we do that again, but this time we freeze one and don't freeze the other. Okay, well, there you go. So Pharah got a recent change to her perks, which I think are pretty cool, which are Drift Thrusters. Pharah can move while Barrage is active. Everybody knows that's useful because you're a little bit harder to hit. And crucially, you can actually pursue targets that are trying to hide from your Barrage, which is nice. I mean, that's huge. It's really good. It makes the Barrage a lot more consistent of an ultimate. You're still going to die during your cast most of the time, but it's nice. It's good. Now, this is interesting because the other perk got a really pretty significant buff, which is the Shields perk. Convert 125 health into Shields, which means you regenerate your health faster. This does not feed you ult charge, but it does mean that you get your health back significantly faster. Significantly faster. Let me demonstrate that really fast. Damage taken, and this is fine. So watch my HP come back. Bam. Now for context, that's about 3 seconds faster. 3.5 seconds might even be. Somebody check the wiki, shields versus normal HP. Anyway, it's significantly faster regen than just normal health regeneration in Overwatch, especially since the recent nerf to the health passive. So you're gonna be, if you're on your own, you're gonna be healing yourself up back way, way faster than any other DPS. 3 seconds, right? And it's 6 seconds for normal health, I believe. Now, the other little detail that this perk got, which you guys may have noticed, is direct hits with rocket launcher triggers the passive shield instantly. You don't even have to wait 3 seconds for the shield health to kick in. If I get here and I take a little bit of damage, but I'm dueling somebody and I hit them with one rocket, I'm gonna start healing myself back up again. And I'm not sure what the rate it is. It's at 10 or 15, something like that. It's pretty fast. So this is actually pretty darn good if you're taking flanks, if you're taking angles and you're fighting DPS or supports on those angles. It's pretty darn good. This perk I think is actually one of the more underrated perks in the game. It's just very consistent value for what you do. So yeah, it's good stuff. The shields also regenerate when you hit another shield, not even another target. That's good to know. So that means it works on deployables. Torb turret, Illari pylon in theory, Symmetra turrets, anything is going to start regenerating your health right back again. So it's a little bit of a misunderstood playstyle about Pharah, especially since the rework. But it's a really good playstyle with this perk, and I think this perk in those situations when you're taking those wider flanks is 100% the better choice. This one is interesting. Concussive Blast knockback is inverted to pull in, so instead of knocking people away, you actually pull people in, including you can pull yourself in if you're within a certain distance. Now, this was really, really good for setting up your rockets, setting up your barrages, setting up combos with your team. I believe this one's distance got nerfed, if I remember correctly. Somebody check and correct me. But this one's how far it pulled you, or how the range got nerfed a little bit recently. The other downside of this perk is that usually when you're playing near a wall, you might want to use your Concussive Blast to knock yourself forward to engage. If you have the Implosion, it doesn't work like that. You use Implosion and you just suck yourself into the wall. But Spiral, you can pull yourself to another wall. That's not how medium, even high level positioning works. When I'm on a wall, I'm very rarely closer to another target that I want to go. If I want to go from this angle to that angle, I can't implode and pull myself to that wall. It's too far away. So for movement, the fuel stores, just even not having concussive implosion, is objectively better. Objectively better. Yes, you could pull yourself up, but you can also, it just allows you to rotate from cover to angle significantly better. That being said, it's still ridiculously good. You set up your rockets easier, you pull people out of position. People still often haven't really quite adjusted to the Pharah boop doing that. It's good. It's really good. That being said, if you value movement more, as I select this thing so it stops beeping, you're going to enjoy fuel stores a little bit more. What that means is Jet Dash grants 50% fuel, maximum overhealth is increased by 100%. So let me demonstrate what that is. This is my fuel, middle of my screen. Fuel is important, not for flight alone. I think a lot of people misunderstand this since our rework. Fuel is also how you move forward faster. Look at that. You move forward faster when you're using fuel. So repositioning is a lot easier when you're using fuel. When you use your dash, your jump jet, which is your shift on PC, you gain more fuel, over fuel. But if you notice, that fuel is only 50%. Well, that's annoying. Doesn't expire. Oh, now it expires. There's a grace period there of 3 seconds. But if I use my dash, I get 50% of my fuel. So I can go dash, 50% fuel, jump jet, and now I have 100% more fuel. So every time I use my dash, which is on a relatively low cooldown of 9 seconds. Oh, I used to be so much lower than that. Tragedy. Come on, Overwatch. We can do better than that. You could just have almost infinite fuel. So yes, we're talking about flight here in terms of like what's happening, but it's not all about flight. It's also about basically having soldier sprint on a flyer character, because the character doesn't have infinite flight, and that's just as well. But you just reposition around the map significantly faster. Can you use implosion close to yourself to launch forward, or is it like a result? Yes, you can. So you can absolutely pull yourself forward. So I'll show you guys what that looks like. I'll show you. So here. I mean, that's pretty nice. I mean, I imagine you could probably cancel that with your fuel usage to just kind of launch yourself forward, so you can go like here. Yeah, and like it's nice. It's just more niche than what you can do with knocking yourself away from something, basically, with the way the game works. So, but all of Pharah perks are good. All of them are good. They all have their uses. It just depends on what you're aiming for. I would say generally concussive implosion is going to be by far the better perk on maps where you're not rotating as much and you're spending more time spamming. Almost certainly the better perk. Same thing you could argue with the barrage. Other than that, the other two probably can perform relatively well. Reaper. Man, Reaper's got a lot of changes to his perks. I think there's a couple of them that are pretty simple. Like, I think Death's Shadow is just good. You don't want to use eliminations for 50 health that you have to walk over, but having your Shadow Step reload your weapon and have more range is just freaking amazing. Freaking amazing. Now, Majors is where things get saucy, though, because Minor is really easy. Don't use the other perk, unless you're feeling silly and want to roleplay 2017 Overwatch, right? Majors is where things get interesting. Dire Triggers, use your alternate fire to fire a volley with longer, I won't say long range, but longer range accuracy from both Hellfire shotguns. The other reason why this is useful as well is because of its animation cancel, which is going to... It just weaves very smoothly. So you go bam, 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 bam. Do you notice as well that it does consume 2 ammo? So it will make you reload faster. Yeah, as Orb says, you can use it with 1 ammunition. So if I empty my clip here, I can fire both shotguns even though I only have 1 bolt left. And the damage is pretty decent. Like, for comparison here, it's not just because it's 2 shotguns. Like, this is here. This is Dire Triggers. This should get the kill. It's pretty good. But yeah, you can't animation cancel anymore. They did remove that. But you can weave it in smoothly with your shots, and the cooldown is really low. You're still going to be better off for DPS uptime by just using your primary fire up close. But if you're looking to finish off a kill quickly, 1 shot from your shotgun. Let's just get it to like right here. Okay. Now try that with Dire Triggers. it is going to be more damage to use your dire triggers. So if your target is mid HP and you want to trust yourself to hit the shots without forcing a reload, dire triggers is definitely going to kill that target faster. Ravenous Wraith is interesting. I think if you're trying to assassinate targets quickly, looking for more flexibility with your play style, maybe the map's a bit broader, maybe you're kind of off on your own, it's a bit more awkward, dire triggers is gonna give you some mileage, for sure. Ravenous Wraith is spicy though. A much more compressed map. Maybe you're getting more healing, maybe you're taking more tank trades. You're getting more healing off of your lifesteal after Wraith form. The gameplay loop for Reaper is usually go in with teleport or a flank, shoot people, Wraith out, and then just get to cover. But with this perk, you have a significant, not an incredible, but a significant amount of more self-sustain. This matters more when you're reliant off of, you're not going off by yourself as much, and you can kind of sustain yourself a little bit easier. Wraith is short off angle instead of disengage entirely. Yes. So for like tank busting, as Orb is saying, thing you're playing more around your team, Ravenous Wraith will feel pretty good because it's going to reduce the amount of vulnerability you have after Wraith. I would say, to give like kind of a general recommendation, dire triggers on more maps and more situations with how Overwatch is kind of opened up is probably going to be a little bit more consistent. But your mileage may vary in more compressed situations, Mauga mirrors, Ram mirrors, Reinhardt, like when you're not really going off on your own. It's a decent perk. It's all right. I just think dire triggers is probably a little bit better. Sojourn. So Sojourn, we talked about consistent value, but there's certain things that just break the game with breakpoints. We've talked a lot about breakpoints already. We're going to talk about them again. Let me demonstrate here.
This ends now.
Okay, you understand? Well, this guy is... Let me demonstrate again. Okay, it just decayed. I freaking hate my life. Okay.
This ends now.
That's all that needs to be said. So, yeah. GG's. Pick this perk. That's all. There's just nothing more to be said. Yes, ammo, nice, but your ult now becomes a one-shot machine. And even with body shots...
This ends now.
Use it. Look at that. Look at that. Okay? It's good. Anything that takes your ultimate from being a little bit inconsistent to being very consistent is worth doing. It's the same thing as the Genji Dragonblade. Breakpoints, the Sojourn without this are annoying. You basically are required to hit 2 shots in every target that you hit. That gives them a lot of ability to live your ultimate. Not when you have this perk. You always pick this perk. I don't think there's any situation in which you choose the other perk. If you're bad, doesn't matter. Get good. Practice it. Hit a body shot or 2. It's still worth it. Always pick this perk. Next one's a little bit more interesting. Dual thrusters, power slide gains an additional charge, and its jump height shifts to lateral movement. So you get less height on maps that are flatter, but you want to move around a lot. Flashpoint. There's a lot of uses for this perk. I'll demonstrate it really fast. That's going to be here. So you just get like crazy movement, right? You can still get some verticality. You just get more of that movement. You see that? Still have a decent verticality. It's nice. But if you need a lot of verticality, probably not the perk to choose, because the other perk comes with its own set of perks. Haha. Okay? Which is Disruptor Shot can stick to enemies and generate railgun energy when dealing damage. So this means it does less damage, right? So if you look at just normal Disruptor Shot here, it travels, it doesn't stick to a target, but it sticks to a wall, and it does a lot of damage, but it doesn't generate my gun energy. It does a ton of damage. I think it actually might do 250. I don't remember exactly, but it does a lot. Now, if I choose this perk, and I stick somebody with it, let me demonstrate here. Still AoE, but not quite the same damage. Still a lot of damage, but it actually just charged me a free railgun. If you hit somebody with this, congratulations, you now have a rail, and they don't have any health. If you find yourself, I agree, Rhea, if you find yourself needing to move around a lot, getting dove, getting pressured, then you're gonna want dual thrusters. If you find yourself kind of getting whatever angle you want, and they're just kind of sniper comps, and you're just kind of chill, this is just an I win button in pretty much any 1v1 in the game. And yes, it's not easy to land because it does have a travel speed, but you stick this on a Hanzo, you win the 1v1. You stick this on a Genji, you win the 1v1. You stick this on an Ana, you win the 1v1. You stick this on a Zenyatta, you win the 1v1. You don't lose 1v1s when you hit people with your Disruptor Shot now. It doesn't make it easy to land, but you literally don't miss if you hit it. I love that sentence. You cannot lose a 1v1 with this. It's almost impossible. Like even like you hit a Tracer with this, she has to recall or she's dead. Look at this. Okay? So they're cooked. Like, it's not just, oh, it's a zoning tool. Because you could, the funny thing is like, it's a less strong as a zoning tool, but you can still use it as a zoning tool. But now it also generates you rail charge. Look at that. Look at that. That didn't even hit. So it's good. It's really, really good. But you have to hit it. So if you value your movement because of the map or the composition, use the other perk. If not, this perk pick. This perk is good. Soldier. I think Soldier perks are a little bit underrated. I think Soldier as a character is still pretty bad, but his perks are actually fairly decent. I think the important distinction here that I've had to talk about in my first perk guide, which I think is worth repeating, is that the minor perk Field Emergency applies to your healing as well. Let me demonstrate that really fast. This is normal heal station right here. All right. It's all right, but it's okay. Okay. This one says when you're underneath half health, including yourself, it says allies, but applies to yourself as well, it's healed twice as much. So it's like Baptiste regenerative burst. Ah! Why am I missing? Why is it missing? How did it just miss me? Okay, bam. It's a lot. It's a lot more. Double more. Mostly used for yourself. It's good. It's really good. The reason why I don't love the other perk as much, although it's okay, is because it doesn't overheal. So if you open with Helix, or not overheal, over ammo. If you open with Helix in a duel, you don't get 45 ammo. You stay at 30. It only rewards you for mid-clip Helixes. The problem with that is with the way that Soldier functions, with the angles that he takes, opening with Helix is generally more common than opening with bullets, because you have the element of surprise, you have a slow-moving projectile, not a slow-moving projectile, but projectile into hit scan. So you generally want to be opening with Helix, in which case you might be wasting this minor perk. I think both are fine. You're not bad choosing either one. If you're not really ever using your biotic field, then you might as well use the other one. It's totally fine. But it is a lot of healing that you're passing up on. And obviously that is ult charge as well. Now the other one is a little bit more interesting. I still think it's a pretty consistent choice, but there's some nuance to it. So Stim Pack, Biotic Field can be used as a Stim Pack, which means dealing 75 damage to yourself, but you increase your attack speed and reload speed by 30% for 4 seconds. So it's basically just a self, not nano boost, but you're increasing your pressure output by taking 75 damage. It used to anti you, they removed it, the self damage, so you can be healed through it. The crucial thing that makes this a little bit awkward, though, is that you're consuming your self-heal to use the boost. So you can't re-heal yourself after you've hurt yourself. You kind of get what I'm saying? Like, you'd have to be near a health pack or be uncontested. I think Stim Pack has uses if you're trying to play Soldier on sniper maps. If you're not taking angles, if you're not repositioning a lot, and you have access to consistent healing, then it's probably fine. It's probably going to give you some decent use. But I think the other one, in most circumstances where you're going to play Soldier, especially most circumstances where Soldier's actually good, like wider open maps, Agility Training is just so good. Just so good. Apply to open with bullets, not saying you're wrong or he's wrong, but why do you think the opposite? I mean, it depends on the range. If you're shooting at medium to long ranges and you can't guarantee the Helix, then it might be better to just force them to move in a predictable fashion before going with Helix. But it depends on when you're opening. But yeah, Stim Pack obviously has some synergy if you can kind of like synergize with it. But Agility Training is just really freaking good. The sprint speed is really obviously good, but one of the clunky aspects of Soldier is that he can't multitask while he's running. Well, yes, now he can, because reloading while your sprint is active is really good at doing things like this. Oh, they're after me. Reload. Reload. I mean, it's just so fast, guys. Agility, anytime that you're going to play Soldier, most of the time Agility is going to be really consistent. Sombra. Sombra's pretty simple. First perk, Encrypted Upload, is cheeks. There are situations where you can hack a target, duck behind a wall, you get 2 more seconds to sell so you can catch them with virus. But most often, you hacking to give yourself away kind of kills the point of your engage in the first place. In which case, you should either use the element of surprise to get the hack off in the first place, so that then you can virus afterwards, or you should just not hack and just virus and shoot anyway. The problem with Encrypted Upload is that, yeah, it's kind of useful, but Controlled Escape is just better. It's just better. Being able to heal yourself when you're below 50% HP, not 35 or 25, 50% HP, and immediately start healing yourself back in just is so good for your uptime. It's so good for your survivability. It's good for winning 1v1s. It's good for, I don't yeah, it's just good. It's just too good. It's one of the most important perks when it comes to gameplay loop in the game. It's so incredibly important that I actually don't think that it's one of those perks that I wish she just had in her base kit. When I see she gets played over, I see a bunch of people taking the stealth perk, and I don't get why. I had the same question, Simba. I think part of the reason is that they use this, duck, and then virus, but I'm gonna be honest with you, Simba, I don't care what they choose. I think they're wrong. It's the same thing when I see pro players picking the Genji perk. I don't like it. This is incredibly good for uptime, and I've watched a lot of pro Sombra play, and I watched them get punished because they didn't have this perk selected. You need to select this perk. You need to choose this perk. It just significantly increases your uptime, and it's just the safer choice, 99.9% of the time. The other two are a little bit more awkward. Viral replication is just the safe choice. Hitting a hacked enemy with virus spreads virus to enemies within 8 meters. It is a nerfed version of that virus, but it also applies on EMP, which means you can get some pretty nasty EMP virus combos. You will get ult charge off of your damage as well, so it's kind of free value when you get your hack. White hat is useful too. The heal over time has been extended. Let me kind of demonstrate that really fast. So basically, I can hack here and it lasts a pretty decent amount of time, and that does give you ult charge too. So if you find yourself going in with your wrecking ball a lot, or you're going in aggressive with another DPS, white hat's not bad. It's really not bad. It's not a trash perk. It's just not something you're going to be getting a ton of value out of all the time. And viral replication, if you are by yourself, which most of the time you will be, is going to be accidental free value. But yeah, white hat is fun and it is fairly useful. It's just very niche. I could see a world where encrypted upload could be useful just to allow yourself to be a nuisance for longer and allow yourself to get that hack virus prop. The problem is I still think giving yourself away is just almost as much of a compromise as not having stealth. So in other words, let me swap and demonstrate what I mean. When you use encrypted upload, I could be wrong with this. I'm open to being wrong, but it's got to be something that I'm not thinking about. Because when you do this, you get more stealth, sure. But you've now given yourself away for a slightly more stealth-centric, which means more downtime in stealth, which is just not often what you want to be doing with Sombra all the time. And Control-Alt-Escape, like let me demonstrate what Control-Alt-Escape, just to clarify what I mean by what I'm talking about uptime. It does work on health packs, that's true. It will help your rollout when you're setting up. So like when you're setting up a flank, you can use it to hack a health pack and rotate around faster while staying in stealth for longer. But let me demonstrate why this matters. Okay, I take damage. Translocate, I'm not 58% HP because I'm just the worst coach in the history of the universe. Let's try that again. Immediately start healing. You're just immediately back in. Especially since the heal passive nerf, you don't need a health pack anymore. You just don't. You don't need a health pack. You can if you want to, but you just don't need a health pack anymore. I think if anything, this has become even more important since the recent heal passive buff, or nerf, sorry. So... yeah, here's what I would say. I think this, I'm open to being wrong. You need to do your research. I would do a little bit more research. KJ made a video about one of the top Sombras who uses it. Interesting. The only other thing I could say as well is that, yeah, like a Kraken saying, in theory, if you have a longer stealth, you can notice that my stealth ends and I don't quite have Translocator yet. That's generally not much of a problem, but I could see a world where it's like, I want to have Translocator immediately when stealth ends. I just think the value of passive healing and being able to immediately cycle in and out again is just too incredibly powerful.
So another disclaimer on the Sombra perk, I spent a little bit more time researching the way that this was being utilized at some of the higher level Sombra players, and honestly guys, I'm still not completely impressed. Essentially what you're doing is you're setting up your hack to allow yourself to spend more time in stealth afterwards so that you're able to get your follow-up virus a little bit after. I do think that there is value to this playstyle and that it can be really good if you play it that specific manner, but I find it to be very myopic in the way that it's utilized, and I still think Control-Alt-Escape just provides consistently more value. Your mileage may vary if you're able to utilize the hack to extend your stealth duration so that you're able to get the assassination a few seconds later, and that hack is utilized well near cover so that you're not immediately forced out of stealth anyway, then you might find success with this perk. But I strongly encourage the vast majority of Sombra players to experiment. I think you're probably going to find more mileage out of Control-Alt-Escape.
Sim. Pretty situational. I mean, sentry capacity is nice. Very choke-focused map. I think it's, like, cool, you know? You just have more turrets, which means more slow, which means more scouting, which means more damage, which means good. The problem is that you do not regenerate turrets faster. So after first fight, once turrets are broken, you really need a long period of downtime. I mean, look at how long we're waiting here. before you get your 4 turret value back again. So once your turrets start getting broken, you really can only get value out of this perk once per fight. Then it's over. You see what I'm saying? Now I can use my 4 turrets again. It's fine, but it's, I would say, much more niche. The alternative, and I won't demonstrate it, but you guys know understand. Teleporter range increased by 50%. It's great. It's great. It's great for team, but it's more importantly just consistent for solo on much bigger maps. You can rotate a lot further and a lot safer with a teleporter. It's good. Any situation where you want to do something silly around a choke, grab the turrets. Otherwise, teleportation, always better. Always better. Like I said, you need like a full 40 seconds to really, or 30 seconds or so, to fully get value out of this perk. Now, Major is a little bit more situational. Shield Battery is also extremely... I'm going to destroy these turrets that drive me nuts. I'm going to go ahead and say that I think the Shield Battery is by far the most consistent. And what that essentially means is that you heal yourself for shields. So you can see a beam connecting me. That kind of gives you a visual for how far away you can get. This is still healing me for 20 shield per second. So this means that I just have 20 healing per second all the time. I don't know if... I don't think it's ult charge because it's regenerating shield, so I don't think you get ult charge, but it's really, really good. Very consistent. But the other one is decent in certain situations. Primary Fire's range, which is this, is increased by 15% with each additional charge level. The reason why this is useful is if you can ramp up your beam to level 2 or 3, Reinhardt and Ramattra just can't really touch you. And so one of the dangers of Symmetra is that people look at her as like a tank buster. She's not really that until she gets this perk. Let me demonstrate what I mean by that. My primary fire range here is about here, which is not bad, but it's just like, it's close enough to where I'm not much further out of their range. But if you extend that by, let's just go and do this. All right, let me demonstrate this on the bot down there because it'll be a little bit easier to see. Normal range.
I will see my ideas through.
Back to 1. It gets kind of silly. Like, guys. Yeah, so there's nothing is going to touch me with this. It's significantly, and it's multiplicative, I believe. So yeah, you're going to be approaching about 15 meter range with this perk. It's really good. It versus certain tanks in certain situations where you're not going to be taking as many angles. Basically, the TLDR, sentry capacity and perfect alignment, good if you're not taking a lot of angles. Perfect alignment, probably going to be a little bit better. Otherwise, advanced teleportation, shield battery are going to be better. I would say I'd probably choose advanced teleportation, shield battery about 80-85% of the time. Perfect alignment is tricky, but yeah. If you allow, and to be fair, it's not just versus tanks too. Like that's really good versus anything. Your primary fire is really good if you, but the problem with Symmetra is always, can you ramp it up safely? If the answer is yes, then perfect alignment is phenomenal. If the answer is no, ugh. Torb. Don't choose Craftsman. Activating overload, refills, rivet guns, ammo. Yes. Anchor bolts is really freaking good, not because funny turret on wall only, but because it allows significant more mid-fight opportunity to kind of throw your turret and run instead of just throwing it on the floor and it breaks. Overloaded turrets sometimes can be useful because you can set it up in defensive situations pre-fight and then just get more turret when you press overload. The problem is that it forces you to use overload on the turret's terms rather than on your terms because you're required to use overload on your turret. The good news is that it does allow you to heal it. So if my turret is taking damage, I can use overload, I believe, to full heal the turret. So hopefully this gets shot. Are you freaking kidding me? It's too freaking short. Wait, no, it's not. And so 29 HP and bam. And it does do more damage. I mean, it's not amazing, but the rockets there hit pretty hard. So basically, I would say almost always anchor bolts, pretty much honestly, especially if you're on like attack or moving around a lot. But I could see situations in defense when you have time to set up and you're willing to use overload that you could use it to kind of supercharge your turret if you have a really good OP. But the problem is that you're stuck with it. So like you can't change it, and anchor bolts is significantly more flexible mid-fight and so on. So maybe there's a world where like you use overloaded turret on defense and you use anchor bolts on attack on like escort, but yeah, more often than not, probably gonna find value to anchor bolts. Yeah, he can heal Bastion, yeah. But yeah, the turret transformation takes a while. It also forces you to use overload, not on your own damage, but you have to use it on your turret, which is just kind of an awkward tie-in, so. Tracer's pretty simple. Health packs restore 1 blink charge. Yes, good, always choose. Pulse on radius is nice, but it's again one of those things that pulse bomb radius increasing doesn't necessarily completely deal with the shortcomings of the ultimate in the same way that the Sojourn ult 1 and the Genji blade 1 deal with the shortcomings of their ultimate. It's fine, but Blink's restoring health pack, especially with how Tracer positions, is just so incredibly good. Major perk, it's the same. They've nerfed it to where recall grants 50 overhealth and 20 ammo that decays over time. I mean, on paper, it's like, whoa, I get to have a really big, long, juicy clip. Let me showcase what that looks like here. So, whoa, right? Don't choose this perk. It's cool and stuff, but 2 more blinks just means recall management, blink management is so incredibly easy. If they did this to 1 blink charge, then we'd have a serious conversation. Then we'd have to have a serious conversation about what's worth more, 50 health and a little bit more ammo or 1 extra blink. 2 blinks is still better. Like it's just better always. Don't ever choose the other perk, please. That's it. Movement with Tracer is how you avoid damage. And getting more blinks means that you're very hard to punish post-recall, and you're allowed to go more aggressively afterwards. Especially when you combine that with blink packs, it's just too good. 50 overhealth and 20 ammo isn't bad, but 2 blinks is just better, like by a lot. So more blinks, more blink charges, yeah, you just can't beat it. You just can't beat it. It's more damage, more uptime, harder to punish you, it's everything. Venture's kind of interesting. So Venture's Tectonic Shock is active, cooldowns refresh 300% faster. This is kind of one of those perks that I feel like deal with the shortcomings of the ultimate really well, which is you can be punishable and a little bit easy to read. So what I mean by that is when you press Q, it's really easy to what we call LOS or avoid the ultimate if you don't have abilities. You will find yourself sometimes pressing your ultimate and you can't see anything. There's nothing to shoot. You've missed your opportunity or you get punished, and so you're either exposed or unable to go in. But you choose this perk, set up whatever you want, pop Q, and you just have cooldowns galore. I mean, not just cooldowns, but multiple cycles of that. And you just go and go and go and go. It really deals with the downsides of Venture's ultimate like incredibly well, and it's just an incredibly consistent. Now, yeah, you can also traverse faster with Tracer with Plagues. Now, I don't think Seismic Sense is bad. You can sense enemies within 25 meters, so I'll show you. I need to go back here, this will be easier. I'll show you what that means. It's like wall hacks-ish, which is pretty cool on paper, to be fair. Like, that's like, why would we not like wall hacks, right? You talked to me how much with Freja, how much you like wall hacks, so why would you not like wall hacks with Venture? The problem with Venture is that you can already like third-person peek anyway while you're underground. And you're not as an assassin of a character from poking with your weapon, so having this advantage is useful, but not as useful. I could see this being very useful if you're playing into like Sombras and Tracers. You want to see Sombra out of stealth, you need full information of these flankers. It's not a bad perk. I just think that the other one is probably going to be a little bit more consistent in value. Right, you basically always know where people are with Venture, just based off the kit, so yeah. Now, this one's saucy. Major perk. Dealing damage with Clobber grants up to 30 Explorers Resolve Shields. Let me showcase how that looks like. Clobber, according to your thing, is your melee. Your melee with Venture does more damage. As you guys can see, it's about, what, 60-something damage? 65, 70 damage? I want to say 70, right? Now, look at my health when I do that. So not only do you have a superior melee in terms of the damage output, but you also have a way of sustaining yourself while you're taking damage. Now, let me kind of demonstrate that with a little bit of heavy damage. Oh, it's like, heal me! It's not a lot, but it's something. If you find yourself in situations when you're up close to something that doesn't have a lot of burst damage, it's nice. It's nice. I do think, though, that the superior perk is probably the other one, and let me explain why. Well, let me show why. The way Venture plays is looking for combos, yes, But in the meantime, the vast majority of your damage is going to be with your primary fire. 25% more range on primary fire looks like this. It's kind of absurd. It's kind of absurd. And it's just consistent. Especially with the recent buff to your fire rate in the recent patch. I like Smart Excavator most of the time. There are situations, there are always hype moments where covered in dirt is going to keep you alive. You get dove by Winston, there's a Genji 1v1 in your face, and you're like, oh my gosh, I lived because of that. But in terms of just the ho-hum, 9 to 5, electric company, paying the bills, 3 kids, wife, exercises, watches ESPN. There was a point here eventually. It's just honestly very consistent. Yeah, no, it's not the ult. It's your actual primary fire. So it's just good. So again, the point being is when you use abilities, I regenerate HP. You guys see that? And if I melee and I take damage out of the shields! Okay, I'm gonna get this right. Take damage, I build it back, I guess? So I guess the point being is I'm gonna have a hard time replicating it without ultimate, but basically the idea is that if you get damaged out of your shields that you regenerate using your ultimate or your cooldowns, you can build back more than the 30 shields. You actually just regenerate the full shields that you had before. Oh, I don't have the perk. Dude, I can't. I want to go home. I want to take your damage. Shoot me, Papa. Shoot me. Okay. Oh, yeah. So see that? So if I use, okay. That's actually kind of good to know. If you burrow, drill dash, come out of burrow, and then get smoked, but then hit your melee, then you get it back tons of juice. Okay, let me just answer that one more time. It's important. Bop. Lots of shields, a little more shields. Pop out. Ah! Shoot me! Please! Wait, melee! Oh, I didn't do it in time. But basically, if you do your cycle of you burrow and you drill dash, whatever, and you pop out and you have your drill dash again, and you drill dash at them, and you get shot in the face, and you melee, you actually heal yourself for a significant amount. So I'm gonna say that this perk, okay, so I'll revert it. Covered in dirt, probably pretty good if you're getting up in their giblets. Especially with characters without a lot of CC, where you can get up in their giblets, right? Otherwise, probably Smart Excavator more consistent. Why doesn't that show that in the perk info? I don't know, man. But there you have it. So I guess it is going to be underrated in situations where you are actively, consistently comboing characters. Because it allows you to regenerate the shields that you regenerated before, which it probably shouldn't, but it does. So, yeah. All right, Widowmaker, Widow is pretty, like, whatever. I've thought about it more. I think there's some decent options. Scope shots charge 50% faster than for sight. I mean, it's really good. It's really, really freaking good. It just means you charge your shots basically instantly. So I'll demonstrate that. So like, look at the 100% here. Bop. I pop ult.
No one can hide from my sight.
Bop. Bop. And if you're like me, you're gonna be hitting a lot of shots. You just get a lot of shots in your info sight. So it's cool. It catches people off guard too, because they're not expecting to be able to have a fully charged headshot as much. The other one is okay. Scope shots cost 3 ammo instead of 5, but very rarely are you finishing your clip with Widow before you rotate. So I would say probably always choose focus aim, to be honest with you guys. Like pretty much always. Tyrant, I think for the sub. Nah, I very rarely are you emptying your clip as Widowmaker. Very rarely are you emptying your clip as Widowmaker. Like you have to understand, the amount of times that you sit here and shoot. And then reload. Like you're gonna pop one and you're gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of what we're going for. You get what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that the other one's bad. I just think that the ult perk provides actual measurable lethality. Better SMG uptime? I mean, I guess you have 2 more bullets if you scope shot into SMG. So I don't know. I'm not saying it's bad. Maybe there's something I'm not thinking about, but my initial instinct is this. Now, escape plan, this is the other one. So escape plan is scope shots, reduce grappling hooks cooldown by up to 4 seconds. Sure, I guess. You're not hitting scope shots. I don't know, chat. This one's actually pretty tricky. So scope shots, so if you're grappling, and then I think if you even shoot a shield, right? No, you don't. It has to be an actual target. That's 4 seconds. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie with you guys. So maybe if you're repositioning a lot, if the map allows for a lot of repositioning, then it's good. And almost certainly better in sniper situations. Circuit Royale, Sniper Mirror, you're not being dove, that's better because more grapples means more grapples shots. Whereas Venomine is just not gonna be as useful in a long corridor. Now the tricky thing is why I can't just say, oh, just use this if you're being dove. Because the Deadly Duke, I'm not Frenching this, is really freaking good. Let me demonstrate. First off, AoE, which is kind of funny. People always forget that. You can see through walls, yes. But, you know, okay, hey, 75 damage, 75 damage. Then you choose Deadly Duke. Okay. Double damage! And you got 2 of them! Now, it has the same Symmetra turret problem of you don't have a reduced cooldown, so it's really only going to matter before fight. But that's kind of how Venomine is used anyway. So, and even if you only get 1 off, it's going to do 150 freaking damage. So I think both are good. I would definitely prefer escape plan in situations when you're not being dove. It's just going to be really consistent. But if there's anything taking angles on you, dude, 150 Venomine is just, you have to stop what you're doing and go grab a health back. You 100% force recall, you force dash, they just can't. Yeah, it's 2 deployables, so check it. See? It's good. It's good. I think Widow's perks, or actually her majors anyway, are some of the most underrated in the game because I think both are fundamentally very strong. 4-second reduced cooldown on any freaking body shot is crazy. I mean, honestly, you could even gimmick that where you could just go like, bop, bop. There's your grapple cooldown back. You know what I'm saying? But the Venomine one is also really good too. Yeah, you can't stack them on top of each other. I believe it just resets the DOT. Yes. So you'd want to put them in 2 different spots, which is why I said it's more of a map-specific thing. But the other one is so good that honestly, I'm not even sure that's a 100% pick right there either. So yeah, okay. Ana had like the most broken perks, but she's been nerfed a bunch of times. Let's start off with Biotic Bounce. Biotic Bounce used to do a lot more than 25 damage in healing, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it's really, really freaking strong. The reason why it's so strong is the fact that it doesn't do a lot of damage, a lot of healing, but it reapplies the anti. In other words, if I select the anti-heal effect here, let me get the perk thing here. Yeah, 50 damage, yeah, okay. So it means that you can miss the nade, but okay, I didn't really demonstrate it there, but the second bounce does apply the anti-heal effect, which is really where it's really powerful. It's still a very consistent perk in terms of value, so using it to just hit more nades, do more damage, do more healing is pretty useful. But the 2 main uses for Biotic Bounce are in duels, you're allowed to hit yourself with a little bit more healing and hit whoever's on top of you with a little bit more damage, so it's really good in 1v1s, or it's decent in 1v1s. And or, oh no, I missed my nade, oh no, I got a lucky bounce, I actually did miss my nade. So I would say any situations where there's like either you're fighting a lot of people in small rooms, or the opposite extreme, a lot of people are fighting, you're fighting like really, really far and having a hard time landing nades. Biotic Bounce is just kind of free. I know everybody always picks Biotic Bounce, but I think it's important to kind of clarify that there are specific circumstances where you should pick Biotic Bounce, and then there's other circumstances where I don't think you should have to. Groggy's really good. Groggy is really good. So enemies waking from Sleep Dart are slowed and take 50 damage over 2 seconds. If you have a tank that you can consistently sleep, the 2-second slow is really freaking strong. That could be Mauga, that could be Roadhog, that could be Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball gets murked by Groggy when you hit the sleep on Wrecking Ball, even Winston. But it's not just that too. Again, if you find yourself taking duels a lot, yes, the 50 damage doesn't matter a lot to tanks, but the 50 damage does matter a lot to squishies. So there's actually a little bit of nuance with this. If you're finding yourself hitting a lot of sleep darts, so there's a tank to abuse, Groggy is actually really, really good, really underrated. Biotic Bounce is just the safer, more consistent choice, but the other one's good too. Like her minors, where there's like some discussion and more nuance than I think people understand, I think her majors likely also have a lot of nuance. So Shrike is the obviously most broken one, so broken that I told them when we first initially testing that it needed to get nerfed right away, and they did nerf it pretty quickly. But it basically single-handedly thrust Ana into the meta because double nano is just ridiculously broken. But Shrike has been nerfed pretty significantly. I believe it was reduced by 2 seconds. I think someone will have to fact check me on this, but the duration is significantly reduced. Not to where it's pointless or bad, it's very good, but there is now an argument for certain situations where Headhunter could be good. The main value of Shrike is consistently, 2 seconds, 8 to 6, is the self-defense. The offensive output is really good, but you could basically have a defensive, basically one of the best defensive cooldowns, support ults in the game. You can basically make yourself almost invulnerable, especially if you nade, because you have a lot of effective HP. And your heal heals you for more and so on. But you can also nano somebody else too. So it's really, really, really freaking good. Headhunter is underrated. It's not a full crit, so I'll demonstrate what that means. It's not double damage like every other crit in the game or most crits in the game. It's only 50%. And the bad thing about Headhunter is it doesn't quite change breakpoints. I think that's by design, otherwise it could be too strong, but it doesn't change a lot of breakpoints. It does mean that you could tap 225 HP. It does mean that you can do this and then just throw anti-nade and they die, right? But yeah, I mean, basically the thing with Headhunter is it's really, really quite good. It's just that Shrike is going to be a little bit more consistently though. The biggest problem with Headhunter today is that it's just kind of throws off your muscle memory in terms of how you want to be aiming with Ana. A lot of Ana aim is more about precision with making sure that you hit the target, but not super specific about where you hit the target overall, which means that a lot of Ana players, when it comes to this kind of up and down placement of crosshair, it's just not quite as important. It's just important to get the crosshair on the target and hit the shot, unlike that. So the problem that I see with Headhunter is most Ana players that I see using it, even Ana players with like pretty good aim, they just don't hit that many headshots. So it's more along the lines of like our thousands of hours of muscle memory just not going as easily into Ana as it is with other characters. Case in point, my Ana is probably one of my strongest characters when I'm warm on her, and yet my Widowmaker sucks, right? It's the fact that I have to aim for the head that generally makes my aim a little bit worse. And like I said, the breakpoints just aren't as consistent. That being said, I do think it's underrated. I think in situations where you don't need any self-defense at all, you're poking from range basically consistently, and you have adapted your muscle memory a little bit, you could probably get a lot of mileage out of Headhunter. I don't think it's been fully explored as much as it deserves. But I will say Shrike and Biotic Bounce are probably going to be a little bit more consistent to self-defense. Groggy and Headhunter just a little bit more high risk, high reward. Yeah, just nobody uses Headhunter. And I don't think that's necessarily because it's bad. It's just awkward or tricky or different. Okay, that being said, we're gonna move on here. I don't think you could headshot teammates. I think that would be way too gimmicky and impossible to balance because the vast majority of people would not do it consistently in ranked in console or PC, and then the people that would just push breakpoints to such an absurd level that it'd be almost impossible to balance. Now you could say the same thing for damage, but the difference with damage is that it's a lot more, you have to be a lot more involved in what you're doing, and the enemy team has counterplay with it. There is no counterplay for accelerating the amount of healing that you do onto a target that wants to be shot by you. You get what I'm saying? Yes, Daniela, yes, you can absolutely argue that Headhunter is better for consistent self-defense, but the problem when you talk about especially high-level Overwatch is you're not as concerned about consistent self-defense as you're about, oh my gosh, they're going to have not Nano Primal or Pulse Bomb or Dragon Blade, and the ults are just countered by self-nano. So you're yes, you're a little bit more weak in the what we call the neutral without the ultimates, but when they get those ultimates, Nano Shrike is Shrike plus self-nade, you just live stuff. You just don't die to ultimates, really. So it's a more consistent output, but you have weak points there. Right. Okay, Baptiste. Now, Baptiste has gotten some work on his perks, and some of his perks I actually think are pretty cool, but there's still a pretty clear hierarchy here. We'll highlight those really fast. So the first ones we're going to be looking at is Field Medicine, which means when your immortality field is destroyed, I don't think when it expires, I believe just when it's destroyed, it restores 80 health to allies and 40 health to you. It's not a ton, but it's a decent amount of free value, and any amount of self-sustain for Baptiste is really, really good. Now, more often than not with Bap, you're probably going to be using Immortality Field on yourself about 40-50% of the time, just due to the nature of how the team fights break out. That being said, 40 extra health, even with the DPS passive factored in, is really nice. That can be a big deal for keeping yourself alive. It's just free value. Now, automated healing is also pretty free value as well. I won't demonstrate that, but basically when you pop your ultimate, you fire periodic shots at random allies. I believe they prioritize lower health allies, but I'm not sure, where they restore 30 health. It's nice. It's just something that may or may not be super, super useful. I don't feel like this one has been fully explored as yet, but the problem, especially in higher levels with this one, is that often more than not, your Baptiste window is gonna have a limited sightline, because the enemy team is gonna hide behind a wall, or your team's gonna push, or your team's gonna kite, or back up, and so you're not gonna be able to see very many people with your window. That means that you might not be able to get the full value out of automated healing consistently, but you will be able to get the full value of field medicine consistently. It's not that automated healing is bad, it's just, again, the consistency of perks is a thing that's valued a lot. Now, that being said, you are not all pro players. You should absolutely go try out automated healing. Try it in situations when you have a lot of teammates on your screen in the middle of a fight and see what kind of mileage they could get out of it, because I think that could be a world where that's useful. But in terms of consistency, especially when you're being pressured or dove, 40 health for yourself, 80 health for allies is something that's very consistently valuable. So I think you should experiment with it more. Yeah, you need LOS for it. Okay, so majors. This one is also something they've been tweaking with continually as well. So Assault Burst has changed a lot since it was initial release. Regenerative Burst, so that's going to be your shift heal right there, now provides BAP with 30% increased attack speed for 4 seconds. It does not grant double healing to allies below half health. Now, I think that also applies to BAP. Let me double check that really fast. So what that means is you get attack speed, but you don't get an accelerated heal over time. Let me double check that. So because you get an accelerated heal with BAP when you're under half health. Is that crazy, or is that double? Was that extra health? Okay, so basically the TLDR that you need to know is that your healing for yourself with your regenerative burst is going to be nerfed with Assault Burst by a little bit. You'll still get the heal over time, but you're not going to get quite as much self-survivability, which is really why people aren't really using the perk. Because the 30% increased attack speed is really good, but you're losing some of your ability to keep yourself up when you're low. That being said, if you're not under a lot of pressure, I mean, 30% attack speed is 30% attack speed. And that means, yeah, exactly, it's both your damage and your healing just as a whole. You just do stuff faster. So I would say if you're not under a lot of pressure, Assault Burst is really good. The reason why a lot of BAPs in higher levels aren't using this, though, is a lot of times when you're playing BAP, you're getting pressured, you're getting dove, you're getting dueled. And so you keep your burst heal when you choose Rocket Boots, but you also get the additional value of what Rocket Boots does, which I'll demonstrate really fast, which is the ability to use space to dash horizontally. So when I'm in the air, you notice I can't use it when I'm on the floor. I can dash off to the laterally to the side. And it's on a pretty low cooldown, obviously, because my dash boots are just infinite cooldown. So I can just go here and then pop up, and then I can dash off to the side. Very, very nice in terms of movement and rotation, something that Baptiste was definitely lacking. That being said, exactly. It's not just if there are no divers, though. I think that's a bit simplistic. I would say if the map doesn't give you a lot of rotational options as well. Because you can argue that, yes, the attack speed is nice, but being able to rotate from angle to angle and keeping your full defensive capabilities, regenerative burst, means that even if you're not being dove, you can force yourself in duels a lot more aggressively, and probably get as much, if not more value than 30% attack speed. Like dashes, it's hard to quantify mobility when you compare it to like raw stat value, but it's not just about surviving. It's about the fact that you can survive and how much more you can do offensively because you can survive. I would say if you're under zero pressure or the map doesn't allow a lot of rotations, you could probably get away with automated healing. You could get away with assault burst, but if you are under a lot of pressure or have a lot of opportunity to take off angles and duels, then the consistency of field medicine and rocket boots are hard to beat. But this may be up to changing at any point in time. Brig. Now this one's spicy. Brig is, they've used one of my ideas. I don't think it was directly copied from me, but something that I've been asking for a long time, which is movement speed post-bash. I want Brig to be able to move around and offensively force herself, and they did that. So the one that you're going to see a lot in terms of consistency, and I actually think you won't just see this in high-level play, I think this is also just consistently better across a lot of comps, is going to be that movement speed. So right now, the barrier restoration says 30% movement speed So you move faster for a second and a half, and bashing an enemy restores 100 barrier health. Now, this is really good for 2 reasons. Number 1 is obviously the movement speed. That means that after you use shield bash, whether you hit an enemy or not, you move faster. So you go, oh, look at that. You just move faster. So you're rotating, you're angling, you're flanking, you're disengaging, you're pushing, you're pulling. It's just speed. It's movement. It matters, and it matters a lot. Especially if you've ever played Brigitte in like Pharahs and snipers and maps. Like, it just allows you to do more aggressive things without dying. It even helps you versus certain dive things like, Hazard or Brawl things or Ramattra that will have a little bit of a harder time closing the distance than you. I think this one is really, really good. Initially, I don't remember what the first perk... Oh, it was like a shield one with her first iteration, and a morale boost was always better, which is Inspire lasts 3 seconds longer when activated by whip shot. That's okay, but I might be wrong with this, but I believe your Inspire is overwritten by your next application of Inspire. So let me demonstrate what that means. I believe your Inspire will last, okay, your last longer when you hit a whip shot, yes, but it means that if you hit a whip shot and then swing your flail, I believe it overwrites the longer duration of Inspire. I might be wrong with that, but even if that's not the case, that's something they're gonna need to test out. But even if I'm wrong with that, it's still going to be inferior most of the time to Barrier Restoration.
Barrier Resto is huge for maneuvering. In addition to listed benefits, it helps with tech, since you can readjust if you mess things up slightly. Morale boost does not stack Inspire.
Okay, good to know.
But
but it does keep the longest duration when overwriting. Okay, so if you do overwrite it, then it won't overwrite the previous longer duration. That's good to know. Okay, so there is still use in that as a whole. But the key thing is not just the movement speed as well, it's what it also does, which is restoring 100 barrier health as well. So if I'm holding shield and I'm getting shot on that shield and I decide to bash in, I just restore more barrier health. Did you guys see that? Like, that's a really, really underrated decision because it means that I can hold my shield, bash in, and preserve the health of my shield without it breaking. So you have ways of extending duels and winning 1v1s, and shield HP is one of the most important resources for Brig when it comes to winning 1v1s. So it's a fairly useful perk, but the movement speed really just completely clashes. It means that 99% of the time I'd say barrier restoration. I guess morale boost if you're playing versus hard dive, maybe, but even I think I'll still prefer the barrier restoration. Yes, you do have to hit the shield bash to get the shield HP back. Yes, it says hitting an enemy restores under barrier shield. Yeah, and it's also stacks with her ultimate as well, exactly. Because you can watch. You don't get movement speed anymore, but now I do. And if I hit, if I take damage here, there's the shield HP back, right? So it's dirty. It's dirty. It gives you that same mobility that you used to have with Rally back in the day. It's really good. Now, majors, this one's a little bit more tricky. So initially, I was a Whiplash, not a Whiplash hater, but I didn't think it was good enough. But I have been stood corrected. The more I play Brig, the more I find opportunities where it's useful. So let me demonstrate what that is. You can slam enemies into walls dealing 50 extra damage. So 70 damage plus 50 damage, that's 120. 1, 2, 3, right? The reason why this is so big is the number of times that you will hit somebody with a wall it's way more often than you initially think. And crucially, unlike the on a crit thing, it has a lot of breakpoints that it changes, where you're able to swing fewer times because you're able to hit them into a wall, right? And so it increases your time to kill by a noticeable amount in a lot of situations. So the damage is nice. It really helps with 1v1s, duels versus tracers, Genjis, anything. And Quick Fix is really good too, but I think this one, if there's any sort of architecture or smaller, more compressed maps, you're going to enjoy Whiplash a lot more. Now, Quick Fix, I think, is still good, which means that your repair pack, so your heal an additional 35 health.
It's just something like 15%. The bash speed makes you faster
right.
than old Rally for a short
yes.
burst. Also stacks the regen if you hit multiple with basher.
Oh, really? Okay, so we're saying that maybe you even get more shield HP the more enemies that you hit with your AoE shield bash. That's crazy. So basically what Quick Fix does is it's basically you just get more burst heal. So you already have burst heal on your armor pack, but it's even more burst heal. The key thing is that it has to be a critical ally, which in the definition of perks is half health. So it's actually not too bad. It's actually not too bad. So I want to clarify that, like, I like the whip shot one a lot whenever the situation demands it, but 35 additional health on an armor pack is really, really good because, again, it's not even, they don't have to be critical, literally critical. They just have to be under half. I mean, look at that. That's huge. It's huge. So you get is her burst 25 healing, I believe? I think it more than doubles your initial burst heal on any armor pack of people under half HP. Really good. So I think with her mages, it's really tricky. I think Whiplash, in any situation where the architecture allows you to do things like that, and or any situation where you're going aggressively. I think Quick Fix if you're dealing with a lot of heavy dive situations. And you want to really leverage the armor pack power. But I actually think both are pretty good, have arguments for being decent. Yeah, so 25 to, you get 60 instant heal, which is really strong. I mean, that's the strongest burst heal that we have in the game, with the exception of like, I guess call it a burst heal, but like you're talking about a burst heal and a heal over time. It becomes one of the strongest heals in the game. I mean, Suzu burst heal, Bat and such, but it's good. Okay, Illari. Rapid construction, healing pylon builds 300% faster and its cooldown is reduced by 1.5 seconds. The major reason why you'd use this is more of the cooldown reduction. As you can see, its construction is pretty darn fast anyway, but having an additional 1.5 second cooldown reduction is really, really nice because if it gets destroyed, I wish I could demonstrate that really fast. I will demonstrate that real fast. If it gets destroyed, surely that will work. No, it's not good enough. Okay, it did. It gets splashed. It's a long cooldown. So having an additional 1.5 seconds is nice, I guess. So, right, it just allows you to kind of get it back again a little bit faster and we'll apply it a little bit faster. It's pretty minor. It's a minor perk, so it's going to be minor. Now, the Summer Solstice one is interesting. So this means when you activate your ultimate, you get an additional 3 seconds of duration of her ultimate. So I'll kind of showcase what that looks like. 4, 3, 2, 1, and so on. Nice, right? But what makes this interesting is that when you pop the ultimate, you still have flight afterwards. So it's not like Sigma Flux where it cancels the flight when you pop the Q. So what this means is that you can get your perk here, throw your shot, and you just have 7 seconds of free flight, which is, okay, it's tied to your ultimate, but that's almost double the amount of free flight. In addition to that, you fly a lot faster, which means you can reposition an 80-80 strafe a lot safer. And then you have 30% increased attack speed, which is really important during your ultimate because if we look at like the fire rate, right? You see how fast I'm charging these shots? So not only do you do more damage, not only do you move around a lot longer, not only do you have free fight for a lot longer, but you're also more consistently going to be able to burst that damage threshold for your ultimate to actually function. So if we talk about the ho-hum consistent value, Rapid Construction is going to have a very small but consistent output on you. Summer Solstice is going to, I think, be important enough. Remember we talked about this with some of the other ultimates in the game. There are certain ultimate buffs like Sojourns and Genjis that just do a good job at making that ultimate significantly better. So even though it only occasionally comes up, when it does come up, it dramatically increases the consistency and power of that ultimate. And also what you do after the ultimate as well. So exactly, the faster fire rate, the movement speed. So I would say almost without exception, Summer Solstice is going to be better just based off of the consistency of it. Yes, it's not available every fight, but you're going to notice a consistent and dramatic increase in the quality of your ultimate pressure because of the ult value of flight, longer flight, faster flight, and better attack speed. I think Summer Solstice is the way to go. I think it's almost always the way to go. I see no situation in which Rapid Construction would be better, to be honest. Major perks. Solar Power. Fully charged solar rifles hit grants 12% of your maximum solar energy, overfilling up to 50%. I'll showcase what that looks like really fast here. So what this means is that if you look at my heal energy here, it only shows up when I use it, but you can expire it all the way. In fact, if you use it all the way, it goes on cooldown. So I can't use it for a while, right? So I can't heal until it fully charges. But if I hit a fully charged shot, you see that extra little yellow bar. Bam. They don't have to be headshots, but they do have to be fully charged. This gives me 50% more healing resource. And now that that range has been buffed not too long ago, it's actually not too bad. Bet you guys didn't even know that it reached this far, right? It's pretty far, okay? So I think this one is actually pretty decent. It's nice. So if you're not under a lot of pressure yourself, Solar Power is really good because you can do damage and then heal your teammates for more. And do damage and heal your teammates for more. The way that Illari is positioned is always the tricky part because she's very rarely positioned directly behind her tank all the time. It's usually on a slide off angle, either helping a DPS or playing for her own angle. Now, since the heal range buff, you usually will be able to reach somebody with your beam, so it's still a decent perk for consistency. However, if you are playing and you are getting pressured a lot, your outburst does only a tiny amount of damage unless you have Sunburn, where you deal an additional 70 damage over 3 seconds, which definitely has some changes in terms of how you're capable of defending yourself, and even changes some breakpoints of what you're doing. I won't demonstrate it right now, it'll take too long, but basically you're going to need fewer shots to finish off the vast majority of targets. So the major is pretty straightforward. Are you under a lot of pressure by dive targets? You should be choosing Sunburn almost exclusively versus these dive characters. Not necessarily the tank, but Tracers, Genjis, Sombras, any Reapers, etc. Are you not under a lot of pressure? Are you just kind of poking and prodding? Solar Power is basically exclusively better. Maybe you're wrong, but I'm pretty sure Rapid Reconstruction doesn't work on the longer cooldown. If that's the case, then that perk is completely garbage. I will take your word for it, but yeah, if that's the case, then that's completely garbage. Yeah, but Sunburn is really good to deal with those dive threats. But Solar Power, if you're not under any sort of pressure, people getting in your face, the other one's good. Okay, all right. Definitely one of the more boring support perks. Not the most interesting. Oh my gosh, my eyes. So Juno is, Juno has had a lot of changes recently, and she's also got a lot of changes right as she was kind of falling out of the meta at the higher levels, at least the 100% pick rate. So there's a lot of exploration I still think needed to be done, but we can give ourselves a pretty decent good guess at what Juno is going to be needing. Familiar Vital means Pulsar torpedoes lock into allies 35% faster, so that means your healing torpedoes are going to lock on to the target much faster. The closer you are to the target, the faster they lock on, but that applies to whether they're close or whether they're far. It means just faster, more responsive healing. It's nice, it's consistent. Reboots, however, is always better when it's good. So it's not always necessary. So what that means is I can double jump here, I can glide, and I can kind of catch the ledge here and create some verticality, right? It's a really important aspect of Juno. However, there are going to be some situations when you don't have the capability to do that, or the walls are just way too high. So what this is useful for is you double jump, glide, and then you can double jump again for an extra couple of meters of height. And that allows you to access height a lot more consistently. And to be honest with you, there's even situations when you can just juke people entirely just based off of this perk alone. Like, this is just too darn slow, right? But if I can use my double jump, I can glide boost, and then I can jump again. There's going to be some situations where I'm just going to completely dodge the pressure entirely, and I'm just going to completely disengage. So maps where there's a lot of verticality, especially when you're under a lot of pressure, that perk is really, really, really good. However, your mileage may vary, as well as you just need to experiment more with when it's useful and when it's not. Okay, so I like it. It's good. It's really good when it's really good, when there's that verticality and you're under a lot of pressure. Otherwise, the free consistent value of Familiar Vitals is just decent. So Familiar Vitals, boring, bleh, but it's consistently good. Reboots, when you're getting pressured, when there's a lot of verticality. Honestly, even if you're not getting pressured, if you're looking to rotate to a high ground that you otherwise wouldn't be able to reach, it's really good. Just make sure that you're utilizing that glide catch. So what I mean by that is the little catch here that allows you to catch little ledges there so you can climb a little bit higher. I don't know if you'd be able to hover for a long time, because at some point, once the glide boost expires, you don't get your double jump back. So you're just going to free fall, right? It doesn't extend your duration of glide boost in that front. Okay, Locked On. Reduce the cooldown of Pulsar torpedoes by 1.5 seconds for each enemy. This doesn't stack with Familiar Vitals, but each enemy hit. So what that means is you're going to hit an enemy with a torpedo, and for every enemy hit, you guys know this from Stadium, right? You get a reduced cooldown. Again, you want to talk about consistency. This is pretty consistent. Torpedoes is a useful AoE tool. You can use it in your backline. You can use it on off angle. You can use it on tank, DPS supports, whatever. Just hitting 2 or 3 enemies is more than enough to make this perk very, 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 very useful. It's hard to really measure Locked On, because very rarely is it a huge burst in value. At least not on one target. It's more just a genuine debuff, damage, distraction, frustration across a lot of targets. And the more that you can put that out, the more pressure you're going to put out there. It's very, very strong. Now, that is, again, we're kind of going about the ho-hum consistent value. Use more torpedo, good. Master Blaster is the one that has the appeal that situationally can be really good. Let me demonstrate what that means, okay? 1, 2, 3. If I land every bullet, which almost never happens, okay? Now with Master Blaster, 1, 2, just barely changes the breakpoints. Now, realistically, you're not going to be hitting 50% faster kills with this. You're going to be missing a lot of shots with your body shots and hitting occasional headshots, but it will change your breakpoints. It will change your breakpoints on the vast majority of situations. Here's what I would say. If you are playing a tank that you can easily critical and have actual pressure on. This might be a Mauga, this might be a Roadhog, this might be, a Winston's whose bubble that you're breaking consistently, whatever. Not Ramattra, not shields, and so on. If it's something you can consistently crit, or you're being under a lot of pressure yourself as an individual, I think crit is good. Your ability to defend yourself with more damage is always good. If you're not under pressure, and there is not a tank that you can consistently pressure, then torpedoes is good. What I mean by that, you're playing into Ram, you're playing into Ryan, there's these big hunks of metal slamming into each other, and you're able to consistently take angles and hit several enemies with your torpedoes without getting your head blown off. Sadly, Pulsar Torpedo Lockdown is just better. It just is going to do more consistent pressure on a large scale. You'll do more damage from the reduced cooldown of your torpedoes than you will with the crit damage of your Med Blaster. Keep in mind that it's not a 2x critical multiplier. However, if you're getting dove, if you're getting pressured, or there's just a really big juicy tank that you're just railing over and over again, then you will get more self-defense and offensive pressure value with Master Blaster. Yeah, it does not work on barriers. You can't crit a barrier. So yeah, it will help with Tracers. It helps with Genjis, helps with Roadhogs, Reapers, Pharahs, and so on. It's really good in those circumstances when there's these mobile DPS that are taking space and preventing you from getting your torpedoes. So what do? You say, well, then fine. I don't get my big juicy AoE torpedoes, but you don't get to keep your head. Obviously, the key thing is exactly as James says, the fall off, which is why you can't exclusively just abuse the crit on your gun like you could with potentially Anna's. It's much more situational. You have to play within range. I'll kind of demonstrate that really fast, but even with the crit here, like that's a full clip, right? That took two full clips just to do like 60 something damage, right? But so yeah, certain situations when you're getting dove, good juicy tank, I think Master Blaster is great. Situations when you're not getting dove, you're getting good free angles, big 3-man, 4-man torpedoes. I mean, locked on. I mean, guys, like you're just going to hit like torpedoes and have a torpedo again in like 2 or 3 seconds. Kiriko is probably the simplest one we're going to do today. So Fortune Teller, Kunai hits launch 2 healing Ofuda to an ally in front of you. I'll demonstrate that really fast. So that means when you do a damage shot, it heals. I'll try to demonstrate how much that's healing for. We could actually run the math in the wiki. But it's a little bit. I want to say 20 healing. Something like that. Why is he dropping to 1 HP? He does not want to be full here. But I want to say it's 1 HP. It's like 20 HP, something like that. Can somebody in chat check? We can actually just look up the wiki right now because we know it's 5 Ofuda. 26. It doesn't feel like it's 52 though. I think it's different if you like do it individually. It's weird because I'm looking at it says 13 per talisman but 26 per burst, which doesn't make any sense. So so perk launches 2, right? So then what is it? It should be 26 healing then, right? Right. So it's 26 healing per damage that you hit, body shot or headshot. I'm gonna be honest, guys. This is just really consistent. It's just really, really consistent. The way that Kiriko plays is you're gonna be taking these little soft or hard off angles and just basically looking to do as much pressure as you possibly can, and just being able to heal for free for 2 Ofuda on every shot you hit. Headshot or not. Now, I don't think this applies to shields. Yeah, it does not apply to shields. You actually have to hit the shot, but it's just 26 healing every single time you hit a shot. And yes, the range is really good as well. I'll demonstrate that really fast here. Look at that. Like that, I'm a solid 15 meters away from the target. How far can I push this? Oh my gosh. Wait, is that the range? Is that the limit there? Just because I couldn't see it? Nope, it's still going. Yeah, so the perk doesn't aim well, as you can kind of see one of the Ofuda hit the thing here. But if you have like within 20, 25, whatever meters onto something, you're just going to be getting free healing consistently. Now the other one is like interesting, where basically the Ofuda, you can kind of see it right there. The projectile speed is increased by 50%, which is a lot when seeking allies below half health. But the way Kiriko positions and heals is you may not always have full LOS on a target, and it's going to be a little bit hit or miss. It's like one of those things when things go badly, it's useful. I don't think it's bad. I just don't know how useful it is in terms of the consistency of the other one. If you are looking to heal somebody who's critical across the map, obviously Urgent Care is going to be really good, but just consistency of output of 26 healing every single time you hit a shot at anybody that's nearby is just too valuable. I don't see the reason why you see most Kiriko players use Urgent Care is because most Kiriko players do no idea what they're doing. They have no idea what they're doing. Most Kiriko players are healers first, not supports, and that's why they are at the rank that they are. I this is almost exclusively used by all high rank Kirikos, is Fortune Teller. And the problem is that there isn't another interpretation of how you play Kiriko. To play Kiriko optimally, you must be taking angles. It doesn't mean you always have to flank, but you do need to be taking angles and looking to do damage. If you're not playing Kiriko like that, you're not playing Kiriko correctly, and this guide isn't for you. Okay, major perk. Again, it's just pretty self-explanatory. Foxtrot. Protection Suzu grants 40% movement speed to allies for 2 seconds. It sounds cool. It is cool. It's just on Suzu's cooldown, which is 14 seconds. And sadly, Suzu, on its long cooldown and how effective it is as a heal and defensive tool, is really not really used offensively. It's not designed that way. It should be. I would like if it was, but it's not. So Foxtrot is a great example of a cooldown of a perk that would be great if Kiriko Suzu was in a more healthy, balanced, lower cooldown, lower effectiveness, more available state, but it's not. And so shuffling is just better. It's just not even close, right? I agree. So Swift Step can be used again within 4 seconds of initial cast. Let me demonstrate that. 1. I don't have the perk selected. 1. It's on cooldown. 1. Oh no, I'm in danger. Wait, no, I'm not. And I can get out again. It's just broken, guys. It's broken. You don't even have to go back to the same target. You can teleport to one direction and a completely different direction. It's just, there is one of the dangers of playing Kiriko. You are on an angle, you get forced out of that angle, and you have to teleport to your team. People don't like that, but it's value. It's value, because you clear the Kiriko off of the angle. This perk really, it doesn't remove that value entirely, but there are a lot of situations where you'll force a Kiriko off of an angle, and she just goes right back to it. And it only costs a 6-second cooldown. So yeah, this perk is just unbelievably strong. It's one of the strongest major perks in the entire game for any character. It takes everything that Kiriko does, and she just does it significantly better. It reduces her punish window. And the crucial thing to note here as well is that the cooldown starts when you finish the second perk. So the only downside of this is that when you teleport here, if I wait. Oh wait, no it doesn't. It starts the second that you use the first teleport. Watch again. 1, I'm in trouble, teleport out. If you don't use it, that second teleport, you are not punished with a longer cooldown. You are only, quote unquote, punished with a longer cooldown if you use the second teleport. You understand what I'm saying? So this perk has literally no downsides, because you can use the first teleport and then just decide, oh, I don't want to use the second perk, and you get the normal cooldown of your perk, right? So you only get the quote unquote extended cooldown for using it twice. So it's great. It's ridiculously strong. We're not here to talk about game design, but obviously you guys can probably guess. By the way, did you notice that heal right there? That's great. So Fortune Teller shuffling basically 100% of the time. I see the value in the other ones, but they're just not good enough to compete. Lifeweaver. Lifeweaver's pretty straightforward, to be honest. They keep working at it, but it's just not good enough. This one's gonna be another one of the simplest ones in the game here. Life cycle is just broken. Permanent 10 healing per second. I don't know if that feeds ult charge. Let me check that out really fast. I don't think it does. So we gotta wait for this here. But basically, permanent 10 healing per second is really strong, right? Just allows you to live dives or win duels or take space and do things aggressively. And Healing Seed is, you know, a total cornball ability. But I mean, it technically is, it's something, right? I've seen it actually get value, like not completely, never. I don't think it feeds ult charge. I believe it's the passive health. Yeah, so the wording of the perk is misleading, because normally when it says regenerate 10 health per second, or heal 10 per second, it means ult charge for every other perk, but it doesn't say passive health. It should say passively regenerate, but it doesn't do so. So the wording's a little bit confusing, but it does not get you ult charge. If it did, that would be even more broken. But yeah, life cycle is the best. It's just the best. Healing Seed only heals allies, and it doesn't heal enemies like it used to way back in its release. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. But the 10 health per second is crazy. It's just really, really strong. Now, Cleansing Grasp is a little bit better. Life Grip cancels negative effects. Cleansing a negative effect reduces Life Grip cooldown by 4 seconds. So if you're playing versus a nade or, you know, an Ashe Dynamite or something like that, I guess, like, you're not really going to be pulling dynamited targets most of the time anyway. It's too valuable of a resource. So like the spirit's there, but the execution is just not it with this perk at all. You know, it's just not enough to compete with life cycle. It's just not enough. Like a 4 second reduction of a cooldown when you Like, unless you're life gripping a target that's literally 1 HP and nated, then it's probably worth it. But other than that, it's just not worth it. So yeah. If your tank is walking in and dying over and over, then you're probably worth picking. It's probably worth picking life cycle and then going out and doing aggressive things with your 10 healing per second. Because pulling him out of danger is not going to make him not go into danger anywhere. It's just too good. It's just life cycle is just too good. Now, the same thing sadly also applies to his other perk as well, which is Super Bloom. Thorns detonate for 40 extra damage when enough stick within 2.5 seconds. That does not mean that you have to hit all of the shots in a row for it to stick. You see that little burst? Watch this. I need a fuller. Let me actually do this with a bigger HP target because I want to demonstrate something. Check this out. You see that? So I got just enough shots within that 2.5 second window. You need to do enough damage or enough shots within that 2.5 second window to be able to get it to perk. It doesn't matter if it's headshots or body shots. It doesn't matter. To my knowledge, it does not apply to shields, but we can test that real fast. Yeah, I don't think it applies to shields. It's just really good. It's good for damage on tanks. It's good for dueling. It's good for keeping yourself alive. It's 100% pick rate. Always pick this perk. If you don't have good enough aim, suck it up. Get good. Or just practice. Because even if you don't have great aim, it's just consistent value. Life weaving, sadly, is just not worth it. I like the concept of spending your defensive cooldown with your dash to be able to do more healing. But 40 healing isn't enough, and 3 seconds is a very short time. I think 3 seconds is probably short enough, but 40 more healing isn't strong enough to spend your defensive cooldown. Because remember, even if you're not being dove, you can use your dash to take more aggressive positions that kind of use yourself as bait, in which case you would want Super Bloom anyway, right? So in no situation is life weaving going to be better than what you do with Super Bloom. So always choose Super Bloom, always choose Life Cycle. If you are going to choose Life Weaving, try to make sure it's not a situation where you're being dove a lot, so that you can kind of just burn your cooldown to do more healing. But yeah. Yeah, Thorns don't have drop-off. They do have a bit of spread, but only after you fired for a period of time. Thorns are actually really accurate on static targets that are far away. You can actually torture Widows outside their fall-off range, but yeah. Oh, I hate this skin. Why did I choose this skin? Okay. Lucio. So, Lucio's a little tricky. So I think that there's going to be a lot of disagreement with this one. I'm just going to give you my take and try to introduce some nuance in here. Would lifing be better if it gave overhealth? I mean, it's definitely an interesting idea, Ralvo. Yeah. So with the miners, Soundwave's knockback is increased by 15%. So this means that your boop distance, so everyone knows the boop, it just go 15% back further. Consistent. It's good. Beat drop, amp it up, is active during sound barriers. So what this means is when you press your ultimate, I'll show you this. So you amp it. Ooh, we're going in, right? Amps over. Beat, amp again. But notice that it doesn't put it on cooldown. So as soon as my beat expires, now I have the reduced beat cooldown of when I used it previously. So in theory, if you want to get really spicy with it, you can amp in, beat, and notice the amp lasts a long time. It's longer than an average amp. You see that? It's longer than an average amp. Okay, it lasts for the entire duration of the beat, and then I have another beat immediately afterwards. So I think this is another one of those perks that is probably strong enough to justify arguing, even though it's an ultimate only perk. It doesn't have to be just amp speed, it can be amp healing as well. But it is really, really good. Now, I'm not going to tell you which one I think is objectively better. I think it depends. I think if you're using your beats and moving around a lot, I think the beat drop is probably really good, and probably why you see a lot of pro players picking it when they're doing a lot of beat pushes and so on. But base blowout is really consistent too. Like, more boop distance is just really good. Even if you're not booping people off the map, even if you're just displacing people, it's really good. So I think you have either a 7-second amp from your beat every other fight, or a consistent longer boop distance. Your mileage may vary. Experiment with it. Choose which one makes sense. I think both are pretty good. Yeah, works with the aura size buff perk too. Yes, and we'll get to that really quick, which is, we'll jump ahead to noise violation. Crossfades range, which means your aura. You see my aura right here? All right. You see the little green border here? Let me see if we get a better thing. When you use amp, you increase it by 150%. Guys, if you know your math, that means big, okay? So that, let me try and get a good vantage point here to showcase it. It also applies in a sphere, right? So it's actually up and down as well. So when let me just go ahead and select that. Okay, there you go. All the way over there. I'm amping people. Okay, if I do this with the ultimate as well. Yeah, look at that. I'm amping those training bots over there, right? It's huge. It's huge. right? It's massive, right? And if you compare that, like I said, with beat drop, then you have multiple opportunities to kind of get amp value out of that one. This one is really good. That being said, I think Accelerando is really good too. Lucio's attack speed is increased by 50% while Amp It Up is active. Now, if you've been paying attention, that also means during your beat drop, so I'm going to showcase what this looks like as well. There's a lot of synergy within these perks. It's kind of interesting. So if you get the beat drop amp here. All right, let's check this out. So Amp It Up is active during Sound Barrier, and now I get attack speed. Now check this out. So if I watch this, we'll just do it stationary just to demonstrate, all right? Really fast, really fast. Boop as well, really fast. Beat. And you get the attack speed, and you get it for 7 seconds. So you basically can affect massive swaths of area with your amp and your beat, or you can make yourself a killing machine. Your choice. Do you want to get a lot of, are your teammates kind of in an area where you want to be able to control a large space? Are you Reddit Lucioing because they're on snipers? Are you finding yourself, it's very situational, very situational. I would say when you're playing with teammates that are kind of focusing on fighting in a large area, but kind of within sight lines of each other, you'll probably find a lot of value out of noise violation and beat drop. If you find yourself kind of playing a little bit more on your own, holding off angles, maybe with one other teammate, you're probably going to find more value out of base blowout and Accelerando. But both are really good. I think all of them are pretty good and more situational, which honestly, like, I wish I was saying situational more often. Situational means well-designed perks for the most part. Mercy. Now, I'm going to be very careful here because I'm sure the Mercy Mafia has kind of run the full numbers on this one, so I'm just going to give my initial intake or my initial input here. It's going to be pretty much exactly what you'd expect, which is more of the, this is really good most of the time, this is situational really strong. So Winged Reach, Guardian's Angel reach is increased by 30%. So if you can kind of look here, I can't reach this target with my Guardian Angel, but now I can. If I had Winged Reach, I would be able to reach the target as far back as this here, which you can probably guess where this is useful. Wide open maps where you're repositioning yourself a lot, Winged Reach is going to be really, really, really freaking good. Not just in terms of who you can help, but also keeping yourself alive as you move around the map. Definitely objectively the best perk in those situations. Now, however, if you're finding yourself not repositioning around a lot, but wanting to go for resurrects in situations where you're not sure that you can, Angelic Resurrection is really good. Crucially, you gain 100 over health after casting the Resurrect. So you don't have invulnerability during the cast, it's only afterwards. In other words, it makes it a really risky decision. If you get it off, a lot safer as you're able to get out more consistently. And 100 over health is a pretty big deal. So I would say Winged Reach is probably going to be the play most of the time. But if you want to go for something more aggressive, you think you can get away with it, you want to go for more aggressive reses, then Angelic Resurrection can situationally be useful. Now, the more interesting thing is going to be the Major, by far the Major. You can cancel the res and get the overhealth as well, right? And that's important because you can basically just tap the res. Let's just do it on a target here. I won't demonstrate it with the overhealth, but you can tap the res and just cancel and fly away immediately, and then just basically cancel and get the overhealth right away. Now, for the majors, things get a little bit more awkward. Secondary fire links to a nearby ally. So if your teammates are more grouped, this one's pretty good because it's just basically 30% damage boost for free or 25% damage boost for free on a nearby target. I will demonstrate this one really fast. I'm gonna wait for this starting to resurrect. You see it? Now, in terms of how nearby you can be, I haven't tested this extensively. I want to say it's around 10 meters, something like that. So you need to have targets that are reasonably close. This isn't going to be your Valk chain by any means. Valk chain is way more forgiving, right? So I can hit a lot of things that are not even close. I mean, this is a little bit too far because of the wall, but you can get stuff. The perk is not quite that forgiving, but it's something to consider. So, right. In 66, right, exactly. If you're not pocketing a DPS that's taking a really aggressive off angle, then Chain is pretty good. The problem with that is that Mercy is really good at not pocketing clumps. She's way better at those solo isolated targets outside of Valkyrie. So Chain Boost gives her strengths outside of her normal strengths. Like she's normally weak at AoE clumps, right? So she's actually decent at it, but it's not enough to compensate and compared to other supports, if that makes sense. So like Chain Boost is nice, but in those situations, you're probably not going to be playing Mercy, or you probably aren't motivated enough to stand behind your tank. You're still going to want to go with your hit scan or your Pharah or whatever else. Flash heal can be used on Caduceus Staff's active target to restore 50 health, tripled on allies below half health. So what this means is, I will need to kind of demonstrate this. So Flash heal can be used, it is a separate cooldown from res, it's no longer tied to your res, and it heals them for, as I'm healing, press R, burst the up. If they are below 50% health, it heals them for triple. Now you can probably guess where this is useful. It's not even on that long of a cooldown. I mean, it's a reasonably long cooldown, but it's not absurd. But if you got a big old juicy tank here, and you press reload, that's 150 healing on a 15-second cooldown, which is not long. I mean, it's still a lot shorter than res, right? Half of res is cooldown. So you're gonna have at least one relevant flash heal per fight, which is really good for keeping your tank alive, but also really, really good for keeping a squishy alive, because 150 health is a lot in a tank. It's a lot more in a squishy. I don't think it used to be I want to say it was a flat 100. I don't know if it was a flat 150, but it was indeed a flat heal at some point, and it did consume your res cooldown. So this one is just free value for sure. And I would say in situations where you're not fighting with a clumped up teammates, aka probably 70-80% of the time, Flash heal is really good. Honestly, even with clumped up teammates, because 150 healing on a 15-second cooldown is really good, and it provides that sort of utility or indoor burst that Mercy doesn't really have. Moira, oh gosh. Okay, so Moira is one of the reasons why I'm actually doing this, because my opinions have changed. I basically said always choose Uprush because you can get to a lot of high grounds. I still think Uprush is really good, map situational though, but Vanish is crucial in the fact that it does something that I did not immediately appreciate, which is a longer fade means that yes, you're out of the fight for 0.5 seconds longer. But if you're off angling here onto the side as Moira, and then I go here, you can basically change angles that you're on entirely. So a lot of heroes in Overwatch, when they take the right lane or the left lane, you can deepen or shallow, but you don't really cross, you know? It just means you get in the open, you get poked out, right? But when I choose my fade perk here, I just can cross in an extra several meters that allow me to honestly just traverse my angles. It makes you way harder to track. Which, yes, you're out of the fight for 0.5 seconds longer, but it just allows you to reposition a lot more. Now, if you are not repositioning with Moira very often and not really limit testing with your off angles, if the map is really compressed, then I would just consistently choose Uprush for any sort of verticality that you can. But in a map where there's any sort of breadth or distance, then this is really good for changing the angle that you're approaching on, or even just disengaging to a different position entirely. It really feels almost impossible to find Moira after fade with that perk. Yes, exactly. So it's much harder to punish you. You're just significantly harder to chase after using fade. Yeah, it's a big deal. It does mean that you're out of the fight for longer, so if you aren't leveraging it when going crazy with your angles and your flanking and your mobility, like all high-rank Moiras do, then you're not going to find value out of this perk. But if you are, you will. Now, the next one is kind of tricky. If you are not taking crazy angles, and you're mostly just kind of spamming damage orbs from sight lines or from main or whatever, you're unable to take angles or the angles aren't there, I think Contamination is okay. I think it's something that's really hard to quantify because you don't really see its effects. So it's like, now how do you quantify that? You don't even see it. There's not even an effect there. It's just damage and a little bit less healing. But it gives Moira some impact on frontline trades that damage orb and healing just isn't going to replace otherwise. It's okay. It's decent. Like, it's really annoying for an enemy tank to deal with, even though he may not even notice it overall. I believe it does stack with the DPS passive, yes, to my knowledge. So it's really annoying. And if it doesn't stack, it's certainly superior to the DPS passive because tanks have a pared down version of the DPS passive. But that would be something that I need somebody to fact check that one for me, because that's going to be very hard to fact check without a lot of help. So somebody fact check it. I'm pretty sure it does, but I'm not sure. That being said, outside of those situations, if you go back to that off angling and flanking side angle kind of a style, Ethical Nourishment is really good because the first 50 healing is instant on each ally hit it encounters. Now, a lot of people are going to look at that the wrong way, especially the low to mid ranks, to be like, oh, I can heal my tank faster. 50 healing is kind of meaningless on a tank, right? What it is really good for is for a 225 HP support on the flank. Yourself. 50 burst healing is broken. You guys think about regenerative burst for Baptiste, how strong that cooldown is for keeping himself alive because of the burst heal and then the heal over time. That's now what Orb is. So you talk about being basically unkillable on an angle, with the exception of like a hit scan 2 tapping you. With the perk of Ethical Nourishment plus Vanish, you're almost unpunishable on flanks most of the time. It stacks, but it only applies when they're being damaged. There's no linger. Yes, there is no linger with that, and that's why it's not unbelievably broken. Which is why you need to make sure that you're kind of sending it down clumps if you are choosing contamination, because you need that orb to slow and keep its on targets for a full 2, 3, 4 seconds, whatever. But yeah, I think Ethical Nourishment's probably the more consistent one in terms of winning 1v1s. Contamination, in theory, could be like, oh, well, I can win a 1v1 versus a pocketed target, kind of, sort of, right? But Moira's not really going to be winning pocketed duels anyway. She's just more about a war of attrition and being an obnoxious butthole for as long as she possibly can. And Ethical Nourishment just allows you to do that better. You're not really going to be punishing and killing people through pockets. It's either you're killing isolated targets, forcing resources, or keeping people's attention for a long time. Right, she's a cockroach, right? So she's not going to be, oh, I'm going to use this to kind of punch through it, hit scan boosted, or by mercy. No, you're gonna pick Ethical Nourishment, and you're gonna sit there with a heal orb and just strafe and spam and strafe and spam and strafe and spam and create opportunities for your team. Zen. Zens are weird. Zenith Kick is cool if you're being dove a lot. Knockback distance is increased by 30%. It's okay. Mostly useful versus tanks, but it can be useful overall. I think the one that you see used a lot, and rightfully so, is Ascendance, which just means activate and hold double jump to hover for up to 3 seconds. That is a long time. So you double jump, and we're moving around. Now, what this means is you have not only the opportunity to rotate from high ground to high ground and to do silly and funny things. The other thing that you can do is you can be weirdly unpredictable with your peaks. It's a very specific engagement, but it's one that really resonated a lot in my mind. There was one moment on Oasis City Center, Oasis University, the more compressed map on Oasis, and this Zen's on high ground, and he keeps taking this perk, well, he had this perk, and he keeps doing this. He keeps charting his 5 orbs and swinging off wide to me on Pharah. And it was so hard for me to punish him because he didn't have a floor to get splash damage on. I had to hit him directly, and he kept doing this, right? And it was just really, really annoying to nail him down. And it also meant that on other maps, he was just able to rotate around a lot more unpredictably. I think Ascendance is something that's going to demand you to think and experiment a lot more about how you position with Zen, especially on maps with verticality. However, once you do that, you will be rewarded with some more verticality and some more unpredictability with your offensive positions. It's not an easy value perk by any means, but it's something once you experiment more, you'll find more circumstances where it gives you value. It doesn't last for very long. It's not unbelievably broken. It's just something that you're going to experiment more with, and I think the more that people experiment with, the more they're going to be like, oh, that's actually kind of useful. Oh, that's kind of funny. Oh, I can actually reach that. Or, oh, they weren't expecting that. Like the Pharah example that I was talking about earlier. I didn't realize how important it was for me to get splash damage when I'm fighting a Zen, and now I can't, right? But yes, you absolutely can't strafe as fast, so that's worth pointing out because you're just much slower. Now, Zen is not exactly a strafing monster anyway, so that's not as much of a drawback as you think, but it's worth pointing out. Now, from there, Focus Destruction. Secondary fire charge is 20% faster and can store 1 extra orb of destruction. This just means that if I'm charging up my alternate fire, I have 6 orbs instead. It's fine. When you're playing Zen, you really only want to be charging alternate fire when you're behind a wall and you're being shot at, or when you're rotating from cover to cover. Your primary fire just does way more damage than alternate fire anyway, so you really don't want to be doing this, right? This is a waste of time. You just need to be shooting. So if you find yourself doing a lot of rotations, a lot of stuff behind cover, Focus Destruction is pretty consistent value. Now, that being said, if you're just basically spamming on tank, and spamming, you're not under a lot of pressure, Duality is good too. Because basically what that means is you're boosting your Harmony Orb healing based off of how much your damage you're doing to a discorded target. So there's a kind of a lot of variables. They have to be harmonied, they have to be discorded. This, for example, will not increase my healing, right? It has to be onto something that I'm shooting. Now, this was buffed recently to a point toward the healing is actually pretty decent here. If your tank, normally you never Harmony Orb your tank, it's just too low of a percentage of his health pool. But there's been a lot of situations where I'll run this perk in a tank mirror on a tank that I can really just dump my Discord into and turn my brain off. Like, let's say I'm playing Orisa versus Roadhog. Orisa versus Roadhog, Roadhog can't kill Orisa anymore, right? First off, he already struggles in that matchup as it is, but now the Orisa's getting like almost an additional double Harmony Orb because you're doing 40% of your damage, which is easy on a Roadhog. Mauga's another great example. Any tank where you're finding yourself just basically vomiting damage on him, Duality is going to feel pretty good. Now, there's not a lot of tanks where that's the case, though. Roadhog is one, Mauga is another. I guess you could argue even a fortified Orisa, you're still going to get some decent damage on that target as well. Ramattra is okay for value as well. But if those circumstances do present themselves, it's a noticeable amount more of healing on your Harmony target. Now, the awkward thing that I find with this is that it's not so strong that you're always going to want to harmony your tank. I think the trap of duality is that it motivates you to harmony your tank more often, but that might motivate you to always harmony orb your tank. And I think even if you got a tank that you can farm for more healing, a lot of the time harmony orb still should probably be on a flanker or on a DPS on the side, or maybe a support that's being dove. It's still useful with that, but you don't necessarily need the vast quantity of healing that duality may or may not provide you. So I think duality is very situational in a lot of ways, but could be really good in those situations. The tricky thing is that both majors just aren't super, super strong. So really your mileage may vary. If you find yourself rotating from cover to cover, again, focus destruction will feel pretty consistent. But other than that, duality might be free value. Like they're both kind of free value, which in the right circumstances might provide a little bit more value, but neither of them are really particularly super strong. And they're not particularly fun either, to be honest with either of them. I guess my main caution would be don't let focus destruction encourage you to hide behind walls 24/7 when there's no threats charging alt fires. And don't let duality have you park your harmony orb in your tank without turning your brain on the entire time. I actually don't like Zenyatta's perks, not because they're kind of weak, but not because of that necessarily. It's because they actually can accidentally encourage you to do the wrong thing, if that makes sense. So actually you need to be really careful with both of them. Okay. Goodness gracious.